everybody, this is Grimmy, and this is an audiobook of my ongoing series, My Father's Warmth, which is a My Hero Academia Todoroki AU. Don't expect any good voice acting from this, I'm not a voice actor, so when you're listening to this audiobook, think of more like your mum telling you a bedtime story. I will not be attempting to replicate people's voices, don't expect that from me, please. Please. Below average expectations from me, please. My Father's Warmth is a Happy Todoroki AU fanfiction where it's a retelling of the Todoroki family story if NG Todoroki was never traumatized and got the guidance and support he needed growing up.
Unless stated otherwise, everything that happens in the canon happens beat for beat in this story. I'm not going into detail about every single little crook and cranny of the story, I will simply cease to exist. Chapter 111. Kalenture. As soon as he got the call from Toga about what went down at the Shirahasakai, the League of Villains was out on the highway in a lorry provided by Giran. Spinner might be a shoddy driver, but he's the best they got. Could have had Toya be the driver if he wasn't such a goody two-shoes. Shigaraki shakes his head clear of the thoughts of the annoying worm that seems to never leave him alone and focus on the task at hand. Intercepting the truck taking overhaul to Tartarus. Spinner isn't sure if this is a good idea, if attacking cops is what Stain stands for, but Shigaraki brushes him off. Necessary sacrifices, Spinner. Keep driving. He stands atop the van, the back doors open revealing Mr. Compress and Magne. Magne, you have the range. This is up to you. Sure thing. What's another few deaths to Magne's growing list? She'd broken into the 30s. Why not aim for 50? The police freak out at the League of Villains, not helped by Magne wielding her giant magnet like she's about to use it. Mr. Compress by her side playing with a handful of marbles in between his fingers. But as a marble is thrown and large boulder is freed, enhanced to great speeds by magnetism like a giant bullet, a whirlwind of sand slams against it and throws the offending object off to the side. A hero. I should have known one would show up. What a pain. Shigaraki grumbles, eyes narrowing on the sandy figure clinging onto the police car from the open door. He recognizes him. He's the father of Frostbite's friend. Snatch? Spinner, slow down! Shigaraki isn't good against sand. In the same way Overhaul doesn't work on fractured terrain, Decay doesn't work on hundreds of granules. But that's not his intent as Shigaraki jumps from the van roof right into Snatch's quirk. His intent is misdirection. He's still bitter at being blindsided by Bakugo and the rest of those kids when they rescued Toya, mainly because it worked. As much as Shigaraki hates when things are used against him, he's not above using the exact same tactics when it benefits him. It did marvels of Overhaul, after all. You can't grab a sandstorm! Snatch snarls at his captive, who despite having thought this through, is really not enjoying the sand swarming his upper body and neck. You've caused a lot of trouble for Endeavor's family, boy. And that makes something in Shigaraki's temple twitch. Other than getting too famous to the point that everybody knows his quirk's weakness, is he seriously being directly connected to Toya? Is that his association? It can't be helped since they kidnapped him and antagonized his little brother's class, but for some reason, being seen as trouble for Endeavor's family really pisses him off. I think you should be a little bit more worried of your family, Snatch. Shigaraki snarls with a furious red eye glaring at the sand hero from behind father's hand. The misdirection is much appreciated by Compress, who uses it to let a marble roll under the police car to release yet another boulder, which sends the high-speeding vehicle and its driver flying into the air, as well as Shigaraki and Snatch. Rescue is a hero's priority. Shigaraki knows that all too well, and uses that knowledge to attack the black lorry with its desired cargo, while Snatch saves a policeman from the car in midair. He landed with both hands flat on the windscreen, which makes it crack further under the pressure of his body, and lurches a hand through the gap to grab the steering wheel from the horrified driver. Not all 5 fingers, though. His pinky finger is up. Spinner worried about non-hero casualties. Fair enough. Shigaraki can hold back from harming anybody doing their job if that means reassuring a good ally of his. He's grown fond of Spinner ever since the two bonded over video games. Snatch is going to save the driver anyway. Which he does, spectacularly so, as it has to be hard to grab a driver from so far away through the mess of an exploding boulder when the vehicle is flipping onto its side. But Snatch stashes back at a safe distance from the carnage with both drivers in his sand. Then knocked out from the speed and impact of the attack, but alive. That's the big difference between regular folk and heroes, isn't it? A voice from behind Snatch makes him jolt, sand protecting the two cops. Tenacity and stamina. Such attractive features, if not for the ridiculous get-up. It's Magna, her giant weapon pointed right at Snatch's head. All those splattered corpses that have been turning up here and there lately. He dares to tilt his head back ever so slightly to glare at the smirking woman. She's so confident in her point-blank shot, she doesn't notice the sand granules swirling around her legs. You ever stop to think about the families who gotta live with that loss? Sand snatches Magna's ankles and fling her into the air with surprising force. Thanks to the support he'd gotten from Endeavor over the years, Snatch had been able to have a more reasonable work schedule and make much more time for Saichi. They trained together, and just as Saichi was learning from his father, Sanjin was learning from his son. Interning with Endeavor had done the boy wonders, because his creativity and sneakiness with his quirk wasn't something Sanjin would have ever thought of. His thing is big attacks, but Saichi had a knack for the subtle and surprise. Probably some subconscious response to Natsu's surprise punch to the face. Magna is quite incredulous at being manhandled and flung, but there's not much time to complain when the giant maw of a sand beast is aiming straight for her. Magna! It's Mr. Compress, throwing yet another boulder-filled marble for her to use as defense. It materializes in front of her, taking the impact from the sand maw. Before gravity can send them plummeting back to the ground, she magnetizes the boulder. With a swipe of her hand, the boulder launches to the side, something that of course catches Snatch's attention, especially when it swerves and attacks him like a small meteor. He retrieves his sand from Magna to protect himself, all while depositing the unconscious police a safe distance away. The pressure from the boulder against his sand wins him a bit and he loses his footing. The force makes him roll backwards over his shoulder, but he has to dodge the attacking boulder again. He's lost sight of Magna, but Mr. Compress's hand comes into view. Snatch has no interest in being put into a marble and makes that clear when a wall of sand swirls in the villain's face, only to be kicked in the gut and sent flying. Mr. Compress was starting to feel insulted with all his dramatics being interrupted. But it was the distraction needed for Magna to strike. Like she had with Pixie Bob, Magna uses her giant weapon to crack it across Snatch's head. Blood covers his vision. Ringing in his ears disorientates him, and pain thrums through his entire body as it scrapes along the hard road. Still, sand swirls and Snatch, tenacious as he is, tries to get back onto his feet to fight the serial killer. But a hand lands square on his chest. The strange metallic buzzing of magnetism fizzles through his body, and he feels his heart lurch as Magna grins. His body is propelled away from her and smacks with a sickening crack against the concrete side of the highway. Snatch's unconscious body falls to the ground with a thud. "He's still alive," Mr. Compress wheezes as he leans over the hero's body. It's weak, but he's breathing, his body having reformed fully after the impact against the concrete. His sand must have cushioned the impact. Magnus stretches her neck. But from how it sounded, he's scathed. Good enough for me. What's better than a dead hero? A disabled hero who can do nothing but watch as their world is torn to shreds. While all that was happening, Spinner was watching Tomura dust the doors of the black lorry and drag out a very restrained overhaul. Despite being quirkless, thanks to frostbite, the man was still tied to a mattress and wrapped in restraints like he could actually do something. Who's the next leader now? Shigaraki scoffs as Overhaul winces and blinks at the bright light of the blue sky. He hadn't been in that lorry for long, but it was near pitch black. His golden eyes refocus on Tomura. For a split second, there's a glint of hope, but then the words and tone settle in, as well as the dark smirk on the young man's scarred face, hand mask in his pocket. Realization settles, and if Tomura dared to indulge, he saw panic in those proud eyes. Kai. The carelessness of that name being spoken makes the man swallow thickly. Did you come to kill me? Tomura is very able to. He knows that. The carnage around them is just proof of it. Shigaraki hums in thought, head tilted. It makes his wind-blown hair shadow his face in a menacing way. You'd like that, wouldn't you? A man like Chisaki of course wouldn't like to die, but at the hands of someone like Shigaraki, a mercy, there's no doubt. Sweat starts pricking Kai's temples as the younger man walks over to him and crouches. It's against his will, but his body jumps when 3 fingers touch his jacket and start searching for something. 2 little boxes, but only one with the finished product. That's enough. I warned you, didn't I? But you were too proud and didn't take me seriously. Shigaraki hums as he opens the cases and lets his eyes scan over the bullets. Give it back. Nerves are spiking, and yet Kai finds the strength to mumble back the demand. I guess that's a bit unfair. You did finish your product on a time crunch. Thanks. Shigaraki pockets the cases. All that hard work you put in is mine now. Shigaraki. Kai feels anger swell in his chest at the theft, but freezes instantly when 3 fingers and thumb grabs his jaw. He expects hives to flare up and devour his skin, but nothing happens. Only the rough texture of Shigaraki's fingers scratches fair skin. Look at that. Guess our quirks are similar, like you said. Shigaraki hums, forcing Kai's head side to side to check it over. Toga and Twice had taught him so much in their short stay with the Yakuza. You should be grateful to Frostbite. He cured you. A menacing grin spreads across his face, amused at the fate of the man below him. Kai's heart is pounding. Shigaraki could easily kill him right now. He stole from him. He's mocking him. Death would be a kindness. But no kindness will be granted to Kai by Shigaraki, and it's not one he wants. He can't die. He needs to bring his boss out of the coma. He needs to keep the Shihasakai, his home, alive. Your thoughts are very loud. Shigaraki snickers and lets go of his face. Scared? He doesn't need an answer. He can see the sweat running down Kai's face and his chest rising and falling quickly. Oh, how the mighty do fall, he hums, letting his dangerous hand trace the zipper of his victim's jacket before tracing the length of his exposed left forearm and stopping to tap the protruding bone of his wrist. Kill you. Nah, I thought of something much worse. Kai grits his teeth as his whole body jolts in panic when 5 fingers wrap around his left arm tightly, cracks forming instantly as the K activates, crawling towards his elbow dangerously fast. But Shigaraki came prepared. A swipe of a large knife with a hidden strength stops the K's journey. The pain is nothing to using overhaul on himself. It's not being deconstructed and reconstructed. He doesn't feel every nerve, tendon and vein in his body, but never before has Kai felt sick like this. Nausea ripples through his senses as the shock to his body makes him tremble. He can't control it as his body tries to resist and push Shigaraki away from him, but he's strapped tightly to the mattress below and he can't do much more than writhe. A bit overkill, Mr. Compress hums from a distance, arms crossed as he and Magne enjoy the show. He's already quirkless. Like I care, Shigaraki snarls. He can see panic swarm golden eyes as they stare at him wide-eyed. What I really hate is how high and mighty you act. For a guy spouting off about getting rid of all quirks, to rely so heavily on his own is a definition of hypocritical. Shigaraki's hand has droplets of Kai's blood smearing, but he doesn't care. He drags his hand carelessly over Kai's middle. Even if hives don't mar his skin, Shigaraki can tell Kai hates the touch from the way his body twists and tries to get away from him. You're proud of your handiwork. It's cruel to take away your most relied upon tools, isn't it? Shigaraki is having fun. He's enjoying this, like tearing off the wings of a dragonfly. That childish immaturity surfaces as malice stains his smirking expression. Don't touch me. Kai spits through gritted teeth, panic in his voice making it hitch. He might sound angry without it, but he's scared under all that stern tone. Shigaraki, you... Me what? The younger villain slams his free hand beside Kai's head, making the man jump and recoil as greyish-blue hair tickles his cheek, golden eyes staring wide at manic red ones. What did you expect? You really thought speaking down to me and my team would get our loyalty? Are you that arrogant? You thought me playing nice, compromising, and willing to work with you on equal footing was a sign of a good faith team-up? Kai is completely caged in his own body. It won't move. He can barely breathe. That Yakuza pride and honor doesn't apply to us vagabond types. You got played by the very tactics heroes use to lull you into a false sense of security, but you let your guard down because you saw me as below you. His hand tracing his remaining forearm closes around him, 3 fingers and a thumb. Kai jolts, closes his eyes and turns his head away, teeth gritted. No, you don't. The hand by his head grabs Kai's face again, forcing him to look up at Shigaraki's menacing blood-red eyes. He can't close his eyes. Is like a rabbit held by its neck, shaking as the final finger wraps around his arm, flinches when decay bites at his skin again and makes his body crumble into nothing. But again, Shigaraki moves quickly and slices through the remnant of his arm, just below his elbow. Cold sweat slickens Kai's face, and he can't move even as Shigaraki pulls back to admire his own handiwork. There's a shake to his own muscles, delighted to have finally put Kai in his place. No longer the terrifying Yakuza leader overhaul. Just Kai. Quirkless and helpless. But you can still be useful. His grin widens, the dark shadows of his face hallowing his eyes like a monster's. You can be a nice little message to Toya from me. One final time, just to rub it in, he grabs the helpless man's face with his bloodied hand, staining his sweating fair skin with his own blood. Sit back and watch me, Kai. With blood smeared across his face, Kai is abandoned on the road, surrounded by carnage, unconscious police, and a wounded hero to be found by first responders. Words swim and churn in his mind, every sentence Tomura spoke to him, every warning and syllable, trying to find where in everything had there been a hint of betrayal. He'd been trusted enough to use a temporary drug. He'd slept in his office. He'd been honest, so where? When? That's what Toya does. Acts all nice and open and friendly before stabbing you where it hurts. Kai had laughed at that. Shigaraki grins as he hears Kai's pained, howl-like cry while walking away, placing father back on his face. Mr. Compress and Magne follow him back to the van where Spinner is yelling at them to hurry up before the authorities arrive. Was it overkill? Yeah, that's the point. He doesn't want Toya's help. He wants to destroy everything with a cruel smile on his face. He wants to show that stupid crybaby how far he's willing to go. Amputating a fallen, quirkless fellow villain he'd worked with was only the start. Shigaraki's message is clear. I'm a lost cause.
Chapter 112. Vitrifying. Rappa had been more than happy to spill all of the Shirasakai secrets after his fight against Kirishima and Fat Gum. Along with him cooperating, the police found logs and notes in both Overhaul's office and laboratory. It was an eerie room where even the professional forensics didn't want to think about its usage. But thanks to all that, they'd been able to collect information on Eri's quirk they didn't know before. Rewind. The ability to reverse a living being's body back to a previous state. What an amazing power! Toya wanted nothing more than to analyze every little aspect of it. Its mutation, how it developed, the extent of its range. Could it rewind genetics to a pre-quirk state or even reverse evolution?
absolutely terrifying in the coolest way possible. Toya was giddy just thinking about it.
Don't forget we're talking about a little girl here. Mirai flicked Toya's forehead as he saw the young man getting excited. Eri's gone through enough.
Right, sorry, Toya said sheepishly, rubbing his forehead. But you said Overhaul's notes implied she can't control rewind. That means that she's been repressing her quirk all this time. That's going to be really dangerous in the long run. So the sooner we can get her training, the better for everyone, especially Eri. The problem is that her quirk doesn't work on objects, Mirai sighed. He, Toya, and Toshinori were sitting or standing by Mirio's bed, who was completely out. We need to find something living for her to practice with. Bugs, spiders, frogs, fish, lizards, Toya started listing off. Worms. Maybe if we can find injured little critters, that'll also give her a goal. From the sounds of it, her mental state is definitely not in a good place. So the most important thing will be having her see her quirk in a positive light. Toya's rambling, a grin slowly spreading across his face. If she sees her quirk as a healing one rather than destructive, then that could... Traumatized little girl, Toya, Mirai pushed again flatly, waving his uninjured hand in front of Toya's face. I'm glad you're here to help, but this isn't a normal situation. At its core, it is, though. Toya blinked. Child scared of their own quirk and hurt by the world around them. I've dealt with that before. The Togare family was doing great these days. He even saw that Ayata's band was planning on going on tour next summer. Actually, come to think of it, Koba is roughly the same age as Eri. I think we should get Dr. Tozura to help. I thought you weren't going to therapy with her anymore ever since her files got stolen. Toshinori voiced his concern. I'm not, but she's still working. Plus, if she comes here and Sir Naitai keeps the files in his agency, those will be impossible to steal, Toya argued. Eri's been isolated for a long time, so she needs to be surrounded by people who care. And it's worth a shot, Mirai nodded with a sigh. All three men jumped when Izuku barged into the room with a panicked expression. Midoriya, what's wrong? Something happened with Snatch. Frostbite took off with Shoji to the police station, but Uraraka and Tsuyu don't know the details. I thought you might, the green-haired boy asked a little frantic. Apparently Snatch got really hurt. The adults looked to each other in concern. They hadn't heard anything about that. Toya knew where Natsuo had really gone. To check on Saichi. Natsuo had expected to find his friend rushing to the hospital or freaking out or even crying or something, some reaction. But instead, he finds the sandy-haired boy rushing back and forth through the police station with a blank expression. That's not good. Especially because Saichi isn't really doing anything as he's rushing around. He looks aimless as he brings paper to the printing machine to refill it, replacing the water cooler bottle, sorting out pens on a table, asking for the 5th time if he's needed out on patrol, checking the information board for the 20th time like something would have changed in the last 10 minutes. Saichi, Natsuo tries. Hi Natsuo, sorry, busy, Saichi says robotically as he rushes past him with a tray of empty mugs to bring to the break room. Natsuo watches him go, before looking back at Shoji, who is just as concerned for the young man. It's like he's in shock, Shoji mutters. Natsuo nods. Go speak with the chief of police, see if there's anything you can help with. I'll talk to Saichi. At that, the two separate, and Natsuo finds his sandy-haired friend in the break room, intensely cleaning the mugs hard enough they might crack. Saichi, just stop for a moment. If I stop, I have to face the reality that my dad could very much die within the hour, and there's nothing I can do about it but trust the doctors can save him. Saichi says in one rushed breath. Natsuo has never heard him like this before. So I'm doing the only thing I can do, even if it's just menial chores and making 100 coffees for the entire station. Natsuo can see Saichi's hands shaking, a mug almost slipping in between his fingers. The man catches it before it can smash onto the floor, letting it clatter on the counter and sprinkling water droplets everywhere. I haven't even told Mum. I can't. What if her heart gives out? Saichi's hands keep shaking. Molecules of sand swirl around his shoulders.
"Wanna spar?" The words make Saichi freeze, before turning slowly to look at Natsuo with wide eyes. Eri is pulling at her ruffled sleeves, looking at the pastel pink bow patterns. The rest of the dress is white, and with pink textured tights and glittering silver shoes, Eri looks and feels much more like a little girl than she has in forever. Like this, sitting on Fuyumi's lap as her freshly washed and dried hair is being brushed and styled, Eri doesn't feel like a monster as much. "You're very brave letting everyone save you," Fuyumi says sweetly, gaining a little look from Eri as she tilts her head back. "And letting the nurses wash you. I know it was a bit scary." Eri shook her head slightly. "It didn't scare you?" "They were nice," Eri said, looking back at her ruffles and admiring her glittery silver shoes. "I was scared I'd hurt them." Fuyumi didn't say anything. She knew when little kids were trying to figure out their thoughts, and interrupting them with her own input wasn't helpful. She let the silence stretch until Eri collected the words she wanted to say. Her voice has a small shake in it. "I killed my daddy, and Mummy left. It's my fault. That's why I'm a curse." Her voice trails off. Chisaki's words still had a hold on her. "A curse?" Fuyumi asks in a light voice, putting down the hairbrush and reaching for a pink bow clip instead. Well, I don't know about that. I don't see a curse." She hums out like she was in deep thought, pondering a difficult philosophical question. As she finishes to style Eri's hair, the child looks back to her again, tears in her eyes. "I see a very sweet little girl." Eri sniffles and turns a little in Fuyumi's lap to look at her straight on. This nice lady had held her hand without fear, spoke kindly to her, dressed her in pretty clothes, and made her feel normal, like a little girl. "I'm not a curse." It was her fault everybody got hurt, but everybody seemed so okay with that, as long as it meant she was saved. If they were willing to do all that for her, is it because they're just good? That maybe she too is good? "I'm not scary?" "Of course not." Fuyumi grins and cups the child's face with gentle, cool hands. "You're scared of your quirk right now. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're a monster." Fuyumi's expression turns tender, seeing Eri's face fill with emotion again. "It's not your fault." At that, Eri sniffles again, eyes watery, and she leans forward to hug Fuyumi. Her mummy used to give her hugs. Her daddy too. They made her feel safe and happy. She used to smile. She feels safe and happier. But she still can't smile. It doesn't matter right now. Fuyumi hugs Eri against her chest. At any point, Rewind could activate, but comforting the child with a powerful quirk Fuyumi doesn't know yet is so much more important to her than the potential risk. A soft knock brings the two out of the hug, Eri still on Fuyumi's lap. "Eri, that outfit looks super cute on you," Izuku chirps happily from the door, Toya and freshly stitched up Aizawa by his side. How the teacher was standing after barely recovering from a quirk and getting 10 stitches was a mystery. "This is Toya, Bix is Fiyu's and Frostbite's big brother. And this is Mr. Aizawa, my teacher." Izuku enters the room, delighted at how Eri is looking after some pampering. "I know today's been a lot. Are you okay with meeting more people?" Eri blots herself against Fuyumi, looking at the newcomers with watery pink-red eyes. "Are they nice?" she asks in a small voice. "Everybody's been kind so far. She wouldn't mind more nice people." "Really nice." Izuku nods and grins, looking at Toya and Aizawa. He probably gives Toya an extremely stressed smile when he sees that look in the fellow nerd's eyes. "Toya, keep it together," Aizawa grumbles under his breath, side-eyeing the younger man. Keep it together. Keep it together. No quirk analyzing an extremely traumatized child." Toya shakes his hands before he inhales and enters the room with a bright grin.
Hey, I'm Toya. I'm a quack specialist. He kneels by the seat Fumi is on so that he's eye level with Eri. I just want to do a checkup and make sure everything is okay and not hurting. Are you okay with that? Eri likes the idea of not hurting. Her chest hurts with emotion, and despite the bath, soothing creams, and fresh bandages on her healing injuries, there is deep-seated physical hurt too. If Toya can help get rid of that. Eri turns a little in Fumi's lap so Toya can do a gentle checkup of her and her horn. Mirai is brushing Mirios' blonde hair out of his face. He looks peaceful and like he's resting. That's good. Gold eyes flick up to Toshinori, who is standing by his side. He made a little sound, a mix between a squeak and sniff. What is it? Mirai asks. Toshinori starts, before turning his head from looking at Mirio to his former psychic. I'm glad you're okay. When I got the call from Bubble Girl that you were hurt, I assumed the worst. Emotion catches in his throat and he has to stop. I'm sorry. Mirai is confused, and it shows on his face. When I thought of you hurt, it made me think of how I made you feel when I got my injury. I'm sorry. That was half a decade ago. Sir Night-Eye had never felt that sort of fear and distress before, nor since. Yes, he had been worried for Mirio, but the relief he felt when he saw his student holding Eri in his arms, alive and standing, and somehow still smiling weakly, fear was forgotten so easily he was willing to die for them both, and Izuku. He'd seen his own death. He was sure it was over and had accepted it instantly. He's glad he's not dead. But he feels a bit lost now. It's probably the same way Toshinori feels now too, without One for All. Mirai smiles at Toshinori, a little sadly, and with his uninjured arm tugs the man's jacket to motion him to lean down. The blonde doesn't need to be asked twice, and Toshinori wraps his arms around his former sidekick. They've never hugged, really, but with how Toshinori is holding onto him like he might disappear, Mirai closes his eyes and exhales against his shoulder, his hand rubbing his back. I'm here. Mirai smiles at his own words and feels his hero hiccup a laugh. I'm alive and well. Don't you dare stop smiling. It's with a police officer that Shoji enters the police station yard. Normally, that's where some of the police would have their smoke breaks, do some warm-up exercises, or hold some sort of event on special days. But right now, it was being used by two pro-heroes in a hand-to-hand fight. They've been going at it for a bit now. Sweat dripped down both Saichi and Natsuo's faces, the latter's head wound threatening to reopen due to his damp temples. And even though Natsuo faced off against the Shia Hasakai the very morning of this day, he's giving it his all like he hasn't exerted himself already. Jab, dodge, uppercut, dodge, kick to the side, jab, punch to the shoulder. It's swift, sharp, and quick, Saichi dodging Natsuo's attacks and returning them without missing a beat. No quirks, just two guys sparring. Saichi can feel his heart pumping, feels his mind clearing as he faces off against Natsuo like he'd done so many times since joining UA. Natsuo had won every sport festival, Saichi coming in second. And that was fine. It gave him something to strive towards. In a way, despite the two being the same age, Saichi looked up to Natsuo. Not as much as he looked up to his father, but still a peer he respected nonetheless. They'd had a rocky start, caused by Saichi, and yet, when the olive branch was extended, Natsuo enthusiastically grabbed it and slapped Saichi's shoulder like none of it ever happened. Of course it had, and Saichi would never truly live down the shame of his younger self being such a bully, but nobody ever held it against him. Because he'd made his apologies and changed. He's a good friend, a great son, and a capable pro-hero that the police appreciate greatly. That's why it hurts Natsuo so much to see his friend who had become such a solid man be broken and shaken by his father's injuries at the hands of the League of Villains. It's a normal reaction, the reaction of a son fearing the loss of his father. It doesn't matter that they're adults now. 19, 9, or 90, the loss of a loved one isn't easy. Especially not to someone like Saichi. Natsuo knows that Saichi is like Toya when it comes to the admiration of their fathers. He tries to think of how Toya would be if their father was mortally wounded. It's not a nice thought. One that he projects onto Saichi, and it hurts. They may not be able to do anything, but for two guys like them, the best stress reliever is a good old sparring session. It makes them both feel less useless and like they're doing something. At least moving their bodies to the point of collapse. An elbow to a rib is what makes Natsuo stagger and create a natural pause in their match. The two pant heavily, Saichi the most as his entire body shakes, chocolate brown eyes downcast as his vision sways. Frostbite, Sirocco, Shoji calls out, catching the two pro heroes' attention. Thanks to the gap in their fight, Shoji and the police officer can step into the yard without the concern of catching a stray. We got news about Snatch. Saichi and Natsuo look to each other in surprise, then up to the sky. It's early evening. The sky has darkened ever so slightly. They didn't even notice. Saichi lets out a long exhale as he straightens his back and looks at the police officer accompanying Shoji. Tell me as it is, Saichi asks. Snatch is stable, but he's comatose. The damage to his spine and brain is extensive. The officer does as he's asked. Saichi stops breathing for a second. He's alive? He asks, wanting to hear those exact words. Yes, he's alive. At the officer's response, Saichi lets out a sharp noise like a gasping cry and drops to a crouch, face in his hands. Comatose, extensive injuries, but alive. That means there's a chance of getting better, at seeing his dad again, at not having to break the awful news to his fragile mother. Alive means a tomorrow, the opportunity to find a solution, to recover, the privilege of seeing his father grow old. They can go get barbecue, paint mugs for his mother's next birthday, work together on the trip to the States for his mother's heart surgery as soon as they find a donor, no matter if it's next year or in 10 years' time, because right now, Snatch is alive and stable. Natsuo sits on the ground next to Saichi as the man's shoulders shake and his whole body trembles, silent tears falling down his face to mix with the sweat of the fight. He wraps an arm around his back and pats his shoulder. The relief in his chest hurts. He's upset for his friend, angry at the pain caused. Yeah, everybody has a story. And Natsuo couldn't care less about the leagues. Not when they hurt his friend like this. Chapter 113. Mild. Eri flinched when Toya touched her horn despite his gentleness, and it just gave Toya more questions. Notes and confessions from Rapper were one thing, but Toya really wanted to speak with Overhaul himself to get a full understanding of Rewind's function. At the very least, he could tell it was hurting little Eri. Aizawa, can you use erasure? I want to check something. Toya noticed the girl jolting and grabbing onto Fumi tighter in fear. Don't worry, it won't hurt. He doesn't even need to touch you. The bright smile on the man made Eri relax a little and she nodded. They hadn't lied or hurt her thus far. Maybe she could trust they wouldn't at all. With a nod from Toya, Aizawa got a little closer and activated erasure. His eyes glowed with a golden-red hue tinged with yellow, and his long black hair flowed around him freely like there was a breeze. Instantly, Eri let out a squeaked sigh and her eyes closed. Her head fell on Fumi's chest as she relaxed completely, like a bunny rabbit flopping onto its side. Again, Toya touched her horn, and this time she didn't flinch. No more buzzing, she murmured sleepily. Toya looked to Aizawa again, and he stopped using erasure, his hair flopping back into place. At the same time, Eri groaned in pain and hugged Fumi tighter, seeking comfort as the buzzing returned in her horn. Fumi, uncaring if she was in danger or not, wrapped her arms around the little girl and rocked her gently to soothe her. It's a stockpiling quirk. With how large her horn is, it's got to hurt by now. Toya rubbed his own cheeks in thought. Him and Aizawa outside of Eri's hospital room, where Fuyumi still was. We could bring in Monoma to use his copy and see if that lessens it, Aizawa offered, knowing Vlad King would be more than happy to volunteer his dear student to help a little girl. Toya shakes his head. His quirk doesn't work like that. He can't use quirks that depend on stockpiling, like fat gums, effectively. They're blanks to him. Toya had memorized and dissected all of the students' quirks and their potential like the madman he is, so Aizawa didn't question that. I think that's enough for today. She's gone through a lot and needs to rest. But I'm calling Dr. Tsuzura and seeing if she has time to help. More than just physical, she needs psychological help. It was with a groan and wince that Mirio woke up, blinking his squinting eyes open. The first person he saw was Sir Night Eye, speaking to All Might. Sir, Mirio groaned again, which got him his mentor's attention instantly. Mirio. Night Eye sighed in relief, brushing his hair out of his face. Can you call a nurse, please, All Might? The lanky blonde nodded at the request and left the room. How are you feeling? All things considered, better than I could be. Mirio cracked a smile before pain settled in. I lost my quirk. It was all rushing back. All his hard work, his training, his refining, it was all gone. Just like that. I'm sorry. Night Eye smiled at his student. You'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry, he reassured. That confused Mirio before his eyes widened at seeing Night Eye's quirk activating for a second. The future I see isn't set in stone. It can be changed. But what I do see, his smile widens into a grin, one Mirio hasn't seen since he made him laugh the first time, is a pretty amazing one. Our work isn't done, so don't lose your smile. Mirio's eyes watered and he mirrored his teacher's grin. Yes, sir. With how exhaustive a day that had been, everybody rested. Being only visitors, Fuyumi and Toya weren't allowed to stay the night, but Aizawa promised to stick by Eri's side in case her quirk went out of control. Natsu had texted the family group chat to reassure everyone that Snatch was currently alive, but that he and Shoji were going to stick with Saiichi and sleep over at the police station. He didn't want his friend to be alone. The next morning, Dr. Tsuzura met up with Toya and Fuyumi at the hospital. Despite everything, she looked as level-headed and kind as always. Toya, how are you doing? She asked sweetly. They hadn't had any therapy sessions since his kidnapping, but he looked well. Good, actually, Toya grinned. In the back of his mind, I upset Burnin because I'm a stupid moron, screamed, but he pushed that aside. He'll deal with that eventually. He hadn't spoken to her since, though. He hoped she was alright. Eri, not so much, though. Obviously, Tsuzura replied as the three of them entered the hospital and made their way towards Eri's room. You're hoping that having some sessions with me will make her willing to train her quirk in a healthy way. Toya nodded. You know better than anyone it's not that easy. Yeah, no, I know, Toya said sheepishly. As they walked up to Eri's room, the trio saw Aizawa and Mirai speaking together outside of it, with Principal Netsu on loudspeaker. Due to my injured arm, I'll be out of commission for a while, as will Mirio. Centipede and Bubble Girl will take care of my agency, but since I'll be in the hospital, I can look after Eri, Mirai spoke. When we're all better, then we can make a decision of where she should go, I think. Sounds good, Principal Netsu agreed from the phone. That means Aizawa and the students will be returning today to UA, correct? Correct, Aizawa confirmed, before noticing Toya, Fuyumi, and the unknown doctor. After a quick goodbye, the call was ended. You must be Dr. Tsuzura. Aizawa and Mirai both turned to the woman who smiled. Toya has spoken a lot about you. Only good things, promise, Toya said cheekily. considering you're the one who inspired Fumi and I to become a teacher and doctor respectively. She's a quirk specialist too," he explained for Mirai, who nodded in understanding. "How is Eri today?" Todoroki asked after a round of introductions. "A bit better than yesterday. She's eating well and chose her own outfit," Aizawa replied. "That's great," the woman chirped happily. "Fuyumi, introduce me to her. That way it'll be less daunting. The rest of you should probably stay outside for now if you don't mind." "Her quirk hasn't been acting up, so it should be fine," Aizawa nodded, and into the room the two women went, the door shutting behind them. "We got some news from Gran Torino and Takauchi," Mirai said as he, Aizawa, and Toya sat on the seats in the corridor. All the injured students and heroes would be eating, getting washed, or getting changed into their regular clothes if they were to be discharged today. Recovery Girl had come in to help everybody's recoveries go faster, which meant all the Class 1A students were back in tip-top form, even battered Kirishima. Amajiki would need to stay a bit longer to fully recover, and Mirio would be hospitalized for an indefinite period of time with Sir Naitai and Eri. They arrested Kurogiri. "Really?" Toya looked surprised. "Yes, but..." Mirai trailed off. Natsu abused the punching bag angrily with a fistful of ice covering his knuckles. The description of All for One's lackey, the one in the mountains, given by Gran Torino and Takauchi, was painfully familiar. A gigantic, sharp-toothed man with skin like rocks. A walking calamity. That had to be Gigantomachia. The guy Natsu had calmed down years ago. "Why does everything always go back to All for One?" Natsu yelled, infuriated. The only reason the punching bag hadn't been sent flying through a wall yet was because Shoji was dutifully holding it, watching sympathetically at his peer's distress. Saichi was sitting on the floor a bit further off, chin on his knees. He looked tired. "Everything!" That particular punch made Shoji stagger a bit, and Natsu stopped. "Sorry." "No, I get it." Shoji shakes his head, and even though he has a mask on, he smiles. With everything that's happened and all the people involved, it's like a bad joke that All for One is always involved. Natsu sighs and collapses onto his butt, sweat dripping down his face. He looks at Saichi, who, despite sleeping a full night, still looks like he hasn't rested in a week. Even though his father is alive, he's still in a coma and extremely injured. He'd called his mother last night to break her the news gently, and while she took it quite well, Saichi was still worried that her heart would suddenly give out from the worry. If Snatch never woke her from his coma, well, I guess it's unavoidable since he's over 100 years old, Natsu groaned, tilting his head back. But what's the coincidence that Toga, who Toya tried to find, and Spinner, who Mogara encountered once before and whose friends we met in her village, were to end up joining the League? And that a random guy Ashido, and Kirishima crossed paths with was a loyal lackey of his. Shoji sat down too, him and the two young pro-heroes sitting in a triangle. I'm sure there's more that I'm missing, or that we don't know yet. Didn't you say your therapist got her notes stolen? Saichi mumbled, and they got used to antagonize Toya? Birds of a feather flock together, so villains are going to find camaraderie among themselves. But the rest isn't really a coincidence. It's a targeted attack. Natsu can't argue that. He's honestly just happy Saichi is contributing and talking. Not much we can do about Gigantomachia now, though. He's gone into hiding. How a hulking beast of a man the size of a small mountain can just disappear is a mystery to Natsu, but it is what it is. At least they captured Kurogiri, I guess. It means they won't be able to do any more disappearing acts as easily anymore. Silver linings where they can find them. While Tozura and Fuyumi took care of Eri at her pace, Aizawa was talking to all his students and making sure they were alright. At the same time, Recovery Girl, Naitai, and Toya were watching the news. Of course, they'd known about Snatch and the League attacking the criminal transport convoy, but not the details of what had actually happened. But now they did. It had only happened yesterday, but already there was uproar over the unprecedented failure. Thankfully, none of it was directed at Snatch, who had saved all of the police officers and was fighting solo against an entire team of villains, but more so at the lack of preparation from the police chiefs, the loss of key pieces of evidence, the anti-quirk bullets, and the general fear of what the League were able to do. Understandably, thought Night Eye, but that's not what had him and Toya staring at the screen wide-eyed. There's recorded footage from the police dash cams of Shigaraki amputating Chisaki's arms. An already quirkless and defeated man, unable to fight back at all. Of course, the entire thing wasn't shown on the news, only the very beginning and the news anchor describing the events as the rest was blurred out. The audio was also muffled due to the crashed cars, so they didn't know what Shigaraki was saying. The question resounding from everybody's mouths is, why? Why would Tomura Shigaraki go this far? Was there bad blood between the two villain leaders? So many questions with no answers. Toya had no questions though. He knew why Tomura had done this. To make a point, he felt a hand tighten on his shoulder and looked to Night Eye, who had a pained expression on his face. Recovery Girl, on his other side, patted his leg gently. Toya swallowed. Maybe it's arrogant, but this point, this message, it felt directed at him. Like Tomura was punching him across the face again and saying, "Look at the cruelty I'm willing to inflict." Tomura really wanted to rub it in that he's a lost cause. He and the rest of the League don't want Toya's help. They might as well have slapped his offered hand away. Emotion rises in Toya's throat. Toya! Izuku trots down the corridor in his UA uniform, Pro Hero costume case in hand. He and the others are going to start making their way back to UA. Toya won't yet, as he wants to hear from Tsuzura the results of Eri. Recovery Girl will be staying too to help the others recover. Chisaki was... by Tomura. Izuku looked like he felt guilt for some reason. Always the sweetheart. I'm telling you now, Natsuo won't feel sorry at all. Toya tries to joke. Natsuo had been the one to render Chisaki quirkless and cause his defeat. He hadn't heard from his brother yet, but knowing how Natsuo could be, he was sure there'd be no pity. No point feeling responsible just because you helped save Eri. Don't let it get to you, said Toya the hypocrite as he let it get to him. Izuku smiled a little at that. I just visited Togata, Izuku said with a little smile to Night Eye. He's in good spirits. The man smiled at the fellow green-haired hero. I know. There's warmth in his voice. The future is full of potential and possibilities. Things are scary and daunting right now, but I know it'll be alright, even if it takes a while. He motions to Izuku to come closer, and when he does, he pinches and pulls Izuku's cheek, which makes the boy yelp. Keep smiling and working hard. Got it? You're All Might's successor, and I won't have you slacking. I'd never! Izuku gasps in jokey offense. It made Recovery Girl, Toya, and Night Eye laugh. To no surprise at all, Eri isn't mentally doing well. Tsuzura looked like she wanted to fight someone. Probably Chisaki, but one of his cronies would do. She needs round-the-clock care. Tsuzura was heated and determined. Believe it or not, this isn't the worst case I've dealt with over the years, nor even my youngest patient, but I am mad. Between her files getting stolen, the pain that Todoroki had gone through, the trash opinions she was seeing with tensions rising, and then this. The woman was on a mission, and the mission was taking care of this little girl. Fumi, I know you can't spend your entire time here with her, but would you give me some lesson plans? Sure, Fumi chirped. But what about your other patients? I do a lot of them online anyway, but if I need to be in person, Night Eye or Togata can watch over her. The doctor replied with a smile to the named pro hero, who nodded in reply. Eri's mental state isn't as fragile as it could be. I have a recovery plan which includes encouraging some training and meeting new people. She's been isolated for years. She needs to meet people like her and in her age group. Toya and Fuyumi looked to each other in mild amusement at how driven Tazura was. This was something to do and focus on, a real hands-on case she could really help in. With everything happening, it was easy to feel useless when all you can do is watch from afar. That afternoon, Aizawa and Toshinori took the Class 1A students back to UA, in much better spirits than they could have been after a raid on the Shihasakai and all the injuries they'd suffered. Natsuo and Shoji had rejoined the group, reassuring them that Saichi would be okay. He was just emotionally exhausted from the stress. Chisaki? Why the hell would I feel bad about that? Natsuo asked with a scowl when Izuku brought up what Tomura did to the man. Tomura's vile for what he did. It's downright despicable. But maybe if Chisaki wasn't morally corrupt himself, he'd still have his arms. Indeed, Natsuo felt no pity, and Izuku was a little startled at how viciously he spoke. Shoji reassured him Natsuo was upset anyway because of Gigantomachia, Eri, and everything else happening. Life doesn't seem to want to give them any sort of break. I'm going to call Dad real quick, Toya told All Might before all the students were guided to the train station to head back to school. His uncle nodded. Toya called his father and let it ring. He didn't pick up. Rude, thought Toya, offended his dad wasn't answering. He called him again. This time he did pick up. Why'd you ignore me? Toya whined. Candlelight, hi, sorry, but can I call you back later? His father sounded exasperated. From the background noise, he was in the car with Kurumada. Did something happen? Toya raised an eyebrow. Your mother and I got a call from Gang Orca. We're on the way to the remedial course. It doesn't sound serious, but his father does sound like he's about to snap from annoyance. Do I dare to ask? Shoto bit Bakugo. Of course he did.
Chapter 114. Tepid. Gang Orca is a fan of kids. He loves speaking to and with them, inspiring them and generally shaping them into capable adults. A lot of the younger children often end up crying due to his scary appearance, something that always makes him die a little inside. But the memory of an excited toddler Natsuo reaching out to him would forever bring him ease that just because a lot of the little ones are startled, that does not mean he's the problem. Knowing the now grown hero is a fan of his was all the more endearing, and he was proud and honoured to be able to call Frostbite a peer. Admittedly, he had expected a lot from Shoto. He couldn't help it. Not only is he Endeavor's son, he's also Frostbite's brother. It was a disappointment to see him fight with Inasa and fail the provisional license exam, but he could see that he was still a Todoroki with how he worked hard in the remedial course. Shoto works very hard, and he works well, on his own, with others, even with Bakugo, the hottest of hotheads Gang Orca had ever dealt with. Which is why when Bakugo let out an ear-piercing scream that threatened to shatter windows, the last thing Gang Orca had expected was to see Bakugo trying to shove Shoto's face off of his arm, yelling obscenities and threatening to blow his head off. The youngest of four had his teeth buried in Bakugo's arm with a flat expression of annoyance. "Shoto, unlatch!" wasn't a phrase Gang Orca had ever thought himself having to order as he pried the boy's jaw off of his friend. Calling both of their parents like they were elementary school kids was almost as embarrassing as it was for the Todoroki couple to hear their teenage son was still practicing his teething habits. The Bakugo parents were honestly more amused at it than mad at their son being bit. "We're so sorry." Rei and Enji bowed low to the parents, forcing Shoto down with them, Enji's hand on his head and Rei's on his shoulder. "It's alright, he didn't break skin." Masaru bowed too. "It's Katsuki's fault anyway for being such a hardhead," Mitsuki added, pushing her son's head down too. "Apologize." "No!" Bakugo fought back, holding his disinfected and bandaged arm. "He bit me! Do you know how lethal a human bite can be?" "Maybe if you listened to me instead of taking charge all the time," Shoto grumbled, trying to push back against his parents' hold. Enji clearing his throat and glaring at his youngest made sure to roll his eyes. I'm sorry for biting you." "No, you are not!" Bakugo yelled while trying to fight against his mother, forcing him into a bow. "Unhand me, hag!" Gangorka watched this in silent dismay. He had no idea how the parents that raised Natsuo managed to raise Shoto as well. But maybe that's what happens when you're the youngest of a large family. "You need to stop." Enji had Shoto by the shoulders and was shaking him back and forth, a look of desperate exasperation on his face and sounding like he was on the verge of a breakdown. "You are far too old to be behaving this way." Shoto looked incredibly unapologetic. Enji, still in his Endeavor suit, stops and looks straight down at Shoto. The boy is suddenly worried. "I have some free time tomorrow." Fear struck through Shoto. "Don't you dare. I'll come supervise your training." "Stop." "I think that's a great idea," Ray added with a nod. "Mother, why?" Shoto shot her a look of despair. "Consequences." With that sorted, and nobody but Bakugo still mad at the whole situation, the kids were sent back to UA, Shoto fearing for tomorrow. Ray took the opportunity to catch up with Mitsuki while Enji and Masaru apologized to Gangorka for the trouble. The pro hero was as embarrassed as Endeavor and assured him he was welcome to watch the training tomorrow. "I'm Masaru, we haven't met." Masaru, meek and sweating a bit at the towering figure that was Endeavor, extended a nervous hand. "Thank you for looking after Katsuki." Enji shook his hand in greeting. "Enji," he nodded. He eyed the man's wife speaking with his own and then looked at Masaru again. Gentle, nervous smile, dark hair, glasses, and overall a sweet demeanor. With a feisty wife. Reminds him of his father. If his parents had stayed together, would he have ended up like Bakugo? He shakes the thought. "I'm sorry again for Shoto. I don't know where he gets it from." "From experience, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." Masaru laughed sweetly, motioning his head to his blonde wife. "Katsuki is the spitting image of his mother. I'm sure Mitsuki has told your wife already, but we're so thankful for what you've done for our son. I'm a bit of a pushover, and was never very good at telling him no." They're loving parents, Enji can tell, even if they didn't know how to deal with Bakugo very well. "My father was the same with me," he offers the fellow dad a small smile. "If you were to ask him, I'm sure he has plenty of stories of me stressing him out over the years." Masaru tilts his head with a curious, almost knowing smile. "You're not the first to think your boy and I are similar." "I didn't say anything," Masaru chuckled, relaxing around the redhead now that he saw his softer, fatherly side. Enji couldn't help his own chuckle. Haro and Masaru are similar. Enji likes the man. Rei and Inko like Mitsuki, so Enji likes her too. Rei decided to go have dinner at Masaru and Mitsuki's house. Fuyumi and Haro could handle themselves at home. And while Enji was invited, he had another commitment he needed to attend to. While Rei went home with the Bakugo, Enji returned to Kurumada, who drove him to the hospital. The one where the Higawara was staying at. Enji had been horrified at the news of Snatch. Natsuo had kept him up to date on everything before it was televised. He let poor Saichi have some breathing room before calling his father's agency. Saichi had been the one to answer, the de facto leader while his father was recovering. That's when the boy had told him that the Sand Hero had been moved to the same hospital his mother was, to make it easier on the family. Enji had made an appointment with the boy and his mother. "Endeavor," Amaya greeted softly, looking tired. "Mrs. Higawara, Sirocco." Maybe he should have changed out of his suit, but between work and Shoto, he hadn't had the time. "How is Snatch?" "Stable." Amaya was sitting up in bed, Saichi standing by her side, the two holding hands. But no sign of awakening yet. The three stayed silent for a moment, before Amaya cleared her throat. "I've always known the risk. My family are police officers, and we're close to pro-heroes. But it..." Emotion caught her throat. "It doesn't make it easier." Of course it doesn't. Enji knows that all too well. He knows the risks too, but that doesn't mean he wasn't shaken by the dangers affecting his own family. From his father to his wife and children. Enji walks to the mother and son and places a hand on Saichi's shoulder. Awkward, but well-meaning. He's not the best at this, but he has a duty. Snatch got injured doing his job and protecting his team. The League attacking wasn't his fault. It was 1 against 4. He's thinking his words through, trying to be reassuring like his own father has been for years. I'm not stopping my support. Please, Endeavor. Amaya's voice is tight. She squeezes Saichi's hand. You've already done so much. Getting my name on donor waiting lists overseas, and until you've been discharged, I'll continue doing. Enji cut her off. Snatch is a good man, a good hero, and is beloved by his community. He thinks of Tensei, also a good man and hero, wrongly targeted by a killer with an ideology. You're young, Sirocco, and I don't want you overworking yourself in worry. Reach out to your friends, spend time with your mother, and continue fulfilling your duties. Sir Naitai's sidekicks are taking charge of his agency while he recovers, so you're not alone. All Might's Hero Hub is growing. Contact them as well if you need something. Understand? Saichi has been silent this entire time. He sniffs and nods, mutters a thank you. Situations like these, intense times like these, is exactly why All Might's converted agency and an expansion of pro-hero networking beyond just teaming up is dearly needed. In this hero society where everybody focuses on the pro-heroes, it is so easy to forget the other parts that make it up. The engineers, the medics, PR teams, police officers, teachers, all these working cogs that need support and upkeep. The Hero Commission oversees it, but Endeavor, after witnessing and experiencing the struggles of his own family, doesn't want and never has depended on them fully. He doesn't have an agency of over 30 sidekicks for no reason. Saichi is 19, the same age as Natsuo and his friend. Enji knows what it's like to be young and struggling. He doesn't want that for his children and their generation. He wants them to be in a world where they don't have to worry. That's why, as the new number 1, Endeavor will continue working hard. For the sake of people like Saichi. Meanwhile, as Toya waited for his father to find time and call him back, he'd headed with Natsuo to meet Gran Torino and Detective Takauchi. All Might and Aizawa had gone back to UA with their students, while Fuyumi had gone home and everybody else was still at the hospital with Eri. Things had fallen into their places, and yet, when Toya stepped into the meeting room and saw the serious expression on Gran Torino's face, nothing felt settled. We can't ignore what Shigaraki did to Overhaul, Gran Torino said firmly. That was meant for you, Toya. It'd been said. The words were out, and Toya swallowed thickly. I know, he muttered, fidgeting with his sleeves. I know that. It'd be one thing if they just took the anti-quirk bullets, but Shigaraki went out of his way to mutilate a quirkless man that Natsuo had already incapacitated. Someone we thought was his ally. The old man pushes, trying to get through to Toya. It doesn't get much lower than that. Toya chews on his lower lip, heat creeping up his neck. He looks to Natsuo for something. Support, maybe. But all he gets is cold indifference. Not towards him, but towards Chisaki and the League. Toya looks to Gran Torino again. He might need to sit down. I know, Toya says again, firmer. Better than anyone, I know. Tomoda is a villain. He doesn't want my help. He made that blatantly clear when he kidnapped, tormented, and punched me. You know, but do you understand? Gran Torino scowls at him. He's in his hero suit, but without the mask. His stature might be short, but that doesn't make him any less intimidating. This is the man who fought by Nana Shimura's side, trained All Might, and went against All for One multiple times and lived to tell the tale. Sorahiko Torino comes from an era of bloodshed and disruption, not quite a war zone, yet as far away from peaceful as humanly possible. He knows evil, and Tomoda Shigaraki is evil. Look at how far he's willing to go just to send you a message. One that is screaming at you, I'm a lost cause. Give up. Toya swallows thickly. His hands are clammy. The tone, the mood of the room. It feels heavy, like they're making judgment. That, if it comes to it, the only way to stop Shigaraki could be to put an end to him. Didn't Eri also say that she couldn't be saved? Don't you dare, Toya! Natsuo snaps, getting into his brother's personal space and jabbing a finger in his chest. Don't you fucking dare! That was Chisaki talking, not Eri. She didn't believe she could be saved, yet the moment I held her, she refused to let go. What has Tomura done? Given villains too many opportunities to hurt people and put kids in danger several times. He tried to kill Shoto's friends, wanted to bully Izuku, and specifically targeted you, and you still dare to defend him. Toya tightened his lips into a thin line, face pale. I misspoke, he said in a shaky voice. He does that a lot, misspeaking. Look, No, I'm not defending him. With what might have happened to Vishimura, to Tenko, it reminds me of Eri's situation, and I think Toya stops, losing his breath. He takes a step away from Natsuo, who is clearly angry. A lot has happened in the last 2 days. Toya closes his eyes and shakes his hands free of the stress. I think Tenko didn't have a fighting chance. All for One did something to the Shimura. He groomed Tomura into being the way he is. I'm not saying I can save him, but I still think we should bring him in alive, The League were more than happy to try and kill Snatch. You really think Saichi would appreciate you speaking about them like this? Natsuo is glaring, getting heated at the reminder that his friend's father was hurt because of the League, the very same people that kidnapped his own big brother standing in front of him, who should know better. What about Ida? How do you think he'd feel if you were talking about Stain this way? It's not about you and what you think. It's about the fact that the League are dangerous villains and want to hurt people. The whole thing of Overhaul is Tomura telling you that. Stop being stubborn. Toya's eyes are blurry. No tears, just blurry. He knows Natsuo is right. He knows he is, and he knows that Saichi and Tenya, their families, are suffering. But the League were involved with the Shia Hasakai and would most likely use those quirk bullets for their own benefit too. But, Toya, you care, and that's a great thing. Gran Torino's voice is softer. You can see the despair in the young man's eyes. You see the hurt that was done to the League members and how they became this way. But that doesn't justify their actions. They're going out of their way to inflict suffering. Whoever they were before can't matter. Just because you feel guilty about letting Nana give up her own son and watching her die to save Uncle Toshi doesn't mean I have to think the same way as you and give up like you have. The words are pained, sharp, blurted out in frustration as Toya's shoulders shook, head lowered and looking at nothing. Natsuo stares at him in shock. Gran Torino says nothing. He's old. He knows evil. He's seen far too much death and destruction. Toya is young. He's hopeful, believes everybody deserves a chance. But he's stubborn. Natsuo starts, disbelieving that Toya would say something like that. Again. What is wrong with you? He grabs Toya's shirt and shakes it. Every time somebody brings up their concerns about you, you deflect. This is exactly why you're not allowed to investigate the League on your own. Stop projecting. Stop making it about you. Other people are hurting. It's not just you. Toya says nothing, just stares blankly at his brother with unfocused eyes, like he's not really there. Natsuo doesn't understand why he's like this. He was too young to remember the worst of Toya's breakdowns when he was a child. And even when he was old enough to remember, his grandfather was always there to distract him, Shoto, and Fuyumi. Is this what his father had seen all those years ago? A blank, detached expression, unable to face reality. What is this? Why can't Toya accept the truth? Tomura isn't Tenko anymore. Gran Torino's voice pierces through the one-sided arguing. The two brothers look at the older man. His expression is solemn, but not hurt or upset, not even unkind. Just serious. He isn't a 5-year-old child. He's a grown man making his choices as an adult. Yes, he was groomed, but that doesn't change the fact that he and the League almost lost Saichi, his father. Focus returns to Toya's eyes. Nana and I made our choices. We can't change them, but we learn from the past. The old man's eyes make direct contact with Toya's, blue eyes glazed over in emotion. Staying stuck in the past is dangerous, Toya. Tears well up in Toya's eyes, as always. Shame builds in his gut and he looks away. He grabs Natsuo's hand and forces it off of him. The look he gives his younger brother can only be one of betrayal. Natsuo's scowl deepens, undeterred. "Don't look at me like that," Natsuo hisses, and rips his hand out of Toya's hold. "My bad. I thought you were a rescue hero, not a wannabe killer." Toya spits, hurt and angry, before he shoulders Natsuo out of the way. "Toya!" Natsuo shouts after him, but the door to the meeting room slams shut. "Gran Torino, I'm sorry." The old man shakes his head. "Don't worry about me." He's old. Words are just that. Words. Even if they're true. Toya's hurting. That message was for him, after all. It's late when Toya gets back to UA, and it's only skeletal Toshinori in the shared living room of the teacher's quarters when Toya stomps in, not any less upset than when he left Natsuo and Gran Torino. Of which, of course, the two had told Toshinori what happened, knowing he'd be the first to see his nephew. "Toya," he tried. "Don't." Toya's voice is tight, trembling. "Just don't. I don't want to hear it." Toshinori stays quiet and watches Toya disappear into his private room, welcomed by a meowing Harusame. Chapter 115. Frenetic. Natsuo is a snitch, so of course he told their father what happened. After the 10th attempt to call him, and who knows how many messages from not just his dad, but his mother and grandfather, Toya turned off his phone, locked his bedroom door, and forced a chair under the handle. He wanted to see and speak to nobody. Only Harusame, who was neatly tucked into his hoodie with his head poking out, purring loudly. The vibrations of the warm, furry creature went straight to Toya's heart, literally, and eased the ache there. He wasn't allowed to research the League. So he wouldn't. Tomura told him he was a lost cause. Okay, then he's a lost cause. If he wants to get killed so bad, then whatever. It's not Toya's problem. Toya doesn't research the League. He slaps a brand new folder full of fresh info that he'd barely skimmed over with Sir Night-Eye. He'd made a copy for himself at the hospital. Overhaul's notes taken from his laboratory. Toya's bedroom is dark except for his desk light. Shoto isn't aware of Toya's state, as he's too busy talking with Izuku, Uraraka, Tsuyu, Kirishima, Tenya, and Bakugo in his bedroom. The blonde had been making his way to his bedroom to go sleep after the return of the first four, their whole class very excited and impressed at their first big official mission, a whole raid, but Shoto and Kirishima had invited him to talk once things had settled a bit. He's in the know about One for All, so even if he's not the closest with Tenya, Tsuyu, and Uraraka, Shoto would like him to be involved when catching up with Izuku. He's good friends with Kirishima anyway. Togata lost his quirk. That's possible? Tenya looked concerned as Uraraka and Izuku sat side by side, nodding in response. Natsuo almost lost his too, if not for his ice protecting him, Izuku adds on, looking to Shoto. You really haven't heard anything from your brothers? Shoto shakes his head. That overhaul guy lost his arms to Shigaraki, Bakugo says gruffly, leaning on a wall a bit further off from the others. That was meant for Big Bro Toya, wasn't it? The others hum in silent agreement. Tenya's expression is particularly pensive as he looks to Shoto. While different, he knew the worry of having one's big brother be targeted. I guess he got to him. Who? Uraraka asks, head tilted. You think Toya got to Shigaraki? Kirishima follows up. Bakugo just shrugs. I think it's mutual. Shoto finally speaks, getting all his friends' attention. Toya might have gotten to Tenko, but he got to Toya first. They met ages ago at a game shop, and Toya's been curious about him ever since. What is it about Shigaraki that makes him so intriguing? Tenya asked. Shoto shrugs. Kindred spirit, maybe? He doesn't know, honestly, but Toya's always been a sensitive soul. Before it was more inwardly, easily upset and lashing out at others. But after the accident, it turned into empathy. Toya feels things very strongly. I remember when we were watching the news about Toga, and he was so affected he threw up. Uraraka and Tsuyu, who had been attacked by the girl in the forest, looked to each other and back at Shoto. Is that why you two already knew about her? Tsuyu asked, finger to her lip. Shoto nods. He looked for her for 3 days, even spoke to her parents. It didn't go well. He retold the events, the things Toya had shared with him, what Toga's parents had said, what his own grandfather had said to them. He did the same with Tenko after the USJ attack. I don't really get it, but I think Toya sees himself in the League. But he's nothing like them. Tenya scowls at that, also not understanding it. He's hardworking, contributing to society, and would rather hurt himself instead of hurting others. I kinda get it. Kirishima pipes up, which gets him surprised looks. I mean, not totally, but knowing that if things hadn't gone a certain way, that you could be a worse version of yourself. Kirishima rubs the back of his neck, looking a bit guilty. I get the worry. So, seeing people that he could have easily been like, without recognition, is why he's so set on helping them, you think? Izuku tries to understand, and the fake redhead hums in response. Yeah, I kinda get it. I understand in theory, but that doesn't justify breaking one's own neck to try and save them, Tenya argues softly, a bit of hurt entering his eyes. Tensei might be recovered and doing well despite it all, but that doesn't mean the reality of what happened and its consequences are any easier to digest. Or the insistence on calling Shigaraki Tenko. He shoots a look at Shoto. I'm not insisting. I just prefer calling him that. Shoto shrugs. That's his real name, not the name given by All for One. Uraraka is distracted, fiddling with her finger pads as they all discuss Toya and the League. She thinks on what Shoto said about Toya visiting Toga's parents. She hadn't known that. The blonde girl was a villain obsessed with blood and hurting people as far as Uraraka was aware and had been exposed to. A dangerous threat. But knowing the sort of family she came from, it kind of hurts now. She's only a year or so older than them all. She could have been in her second year of high school if not for everything. Why do you think they don't want to change? She speaks softly, not looking at the others as she traces a hand to her leg, around the area Toga had stabbed her. Toya wants to help them. Why don't they accept it? The others stay silent. Maybe they think they don't owe others that. Tsuyu offers. They've been hurt so much, the only way to exist is lashing out? That makes Izuku's back straighten. Before the sports festival, Toya said something like that. But I can't help thinking, what if I'm the first person to try? What if nobody ever tried to save them before, so they don't think they're deserving of it? Or they don't know how to react? What if me reaching out a hand is a foreign concept only associated with rejection or violence? I can't let that go. The others in the room stay silent as Izuku recalls his conversation with the young man. Kirishima picks at his sharp teeth with his thumb in thought. Tsuyu and Uraraka lean on each other. Tenya has his eyes downcast, and Shoto just stares into the air. That's Big Bro Toya's job, Bakugo snaps everybody out of their daze and they look at him. Like you just said, it's not our job to help those who've hit rock bottom. That's his. He's the doctor. We're pro-heroes. Our job is protecting civilians and stopping villains from causing harm. Bad past or not, right now, the League's actions are making tensions rise. We have to stop them. They all stare at the blonde in surprise. Then Kirishima snorts. Where was that attitude during the license exam? He cackled, Bakugo's face flushing in embarrassment as the rest giggle too. Guess Gangorka's done a number on you, huh? Tsu teases. Shut up! Bakugo snarls at everyone, but it has no bite. Shoto smiles at everyone having a good time, agreeing with Bakugo while also making jabs at him, which he complains about but seems to take quite well, all things considered. Izuku is smiling as he laughs at something Uraraka said. This is nice. Shoto likes this. Shoto is absolutely mortified the next day, though, when he and Bakugo are chaperoned by President Mike and All Might to their remedial course, knowing full well who else would be there waiting for him. Consequences. Bakugo repeats Rei's word with a shit-eating grin. All Might waves off his nephew and Bakugo as the two go to get changed. We'll be watching from above, he reassures them. Rock on out there! President Mike encourages enthusiastically. That's when they feel the fiery presence of none other than the de facto #1 hero looming at the top of the stairs next to them. Yo, Endeavor! A loud blonde greets. President Mike, Endeavor, in his full getup minus his flames, greets back. Toshinori, thanks for chaperoning the kids. Hi, Enji. Toshinori smiles up at the younger man. It's a good precaution considering what the League has been up to. Normally it'd be Aizawa, but he's busy helping with Eri at the hospital. Night Eyes told me. Enji nods. I'm going to go get coffee before the kids start their training. You two want anything? President Mike offers, to which Enji accepts, but Toshinori asks for a tea instead. It's gentler on his fragile system. BRB! Meanwhile, Shoto was genuinely kind of pleasantly surprised to see Inasa again, as well as meeting Kamiya and Shishikura properly, or Meat Boy, as Bakugo called him. Before he got changed, though, the latter stopped him. Pardon my forwardness, but I must voice my admiration for your older brother Frostbite, the older teen said with such formality Shoto felt his own back straighten. Ever since his ocean rescue, I've been looking up to him, and his recent achievements with the Shirahasakai proves to me how much of a competent hero he is. I'm envious of him being your brother. Shoto grins. Yeah, he's pretty cool, he agrees. Inasa gives him the stink eye at that, although it doesn't feel genuine, rather a bit of a comedic jab. I'm still sorry about that. The whole... Shoto rubs his neck after the two got changed into their hero uniforms, making their way to the arena. Assuming things. What's under the bridge? Inasa exclaims with a bright grin. Kinda like All Might's. Shoto can learn to appreciate it. Say, what's your favorite food? Cold soba noodles. Shoto's reply is instant. I like 'em hot. Udon's my favorite though. We're really polar opposites, aren't we? Shoto laughs a bit as he says that. Maybe our differences can bring us closer. He raises an eyebrow at that and smiles at Inasa. Wanna be friends? Best friends! Bakugo's eye twitches in annoyance. This feels like deja vu and he wants to deck the both of them into next year. Watch it, Baldy. If you become friends with that idiot, you'll end up having Endeavor throw you in the pond, he warns, half to make them shut up, half because he wanted to be included. Promise! Inasa is sparkly-eyed. Why is that something you want? You admit we're friends then? Shoto tilts his head ever so slightly, eyes narrowing into slits as he grins mischievously. Not after that bite we're not! Bakugo waves his previously injured arm in Shoto's face. The entirety of the class had been in hysterics when the reason for Bakugo's bandaged arm was explained. Only Tenya was sympathetic and had laid an understanding hand on the blonde's shoulder while Kaminari and Sero claimed Shoto as one of them. Even Momo and Izuku had been laughing. Never a boring day with Class 1A. With drinks in hand, President Mike, All Might, and Endeavor made their ways into the stands, discussing which seats to get. President Mike suggested the front seats, but All Might leans more into not standing out. Endeavor hadn't initially meant to make a scene, but when he heard his brother say that, plus saw Shoto in the arena, well. Shoto! Shoto wanted to die. He stiffened like a board and his head dropped in shame as all the other kids turned in surprise to see Endeavor yelling his son's name, fire bursting around his shoulders and face.
Bite anyone and I'm bringing out the child leash. Your mother still has it.
Schadenfreude has never been so palpable, Bakugo thinks as he watches Shoto drop to a crouch, covering his face in shame as both fire and ice burst from his cheeks. Kamiya watches the handsome boy turn several shades of red and thinks this side is cute too. Meanwhile, Inasa looks between Endeavor and Shoto in bewilderment, before bursting out laughing. Seeing the new number one scorn his son so publicly could have been embarrassing, but considering what he was scorning him for and Inasa's belly laugh, everybody else started laughing too. The air was light and fun. Of course, all the students were distracted now knowing that All Might and Endeavor would be watching them, something Mera weakly demanded them to stop. Consequences. Bakugo squats beside Shoto to say smugly into his face, with the most shit-eating grin Shoto has ever seen on the boy. Come on, rabies, stand up. Rabies! Inasa howls like it's the funniest thing ever. Just kill me now. Shoto wanted friends. This is the consequences of having friends. Look what you did. Toshinori sighs as he looks to his fiery brother, who doesn't look the least bit apologetic. In fact, he has a smug face that rivals Bakugo's. Why would you do that? There's humor in his voice. Exposure therapy, Endeavor huffs out. This is not what that means. Exasperation is thick in All Might's voice. You just wanted to make a scene because of me, didn't you? No, Enji lies. President Mike is cackling watching this. Today's gonna be a fun one. Things settle down as Gang Orca joins the arena and today's training starts. Well, as settled down as it can get when Gang Orca is hurling, necessary and deserved, insults at the students. Enji was almost extremely honoured to see his specialty of throwing students, finally witnessing what Natsuo had been talking about all these years. The way he threw Bakugo, Shoto and Inasa with such ease got a snort out of him and the two blonde teachers. Entertainment didn't stop as a herd of troublemaking children was unleashed onto the students, a very worried kindergarten teacher fretting over everything by Gang Orca's side. Around this point, President Mike couldn't take not doing live commentary anymore and disappeared to also be a problem for Mera and the other Hero Commission employees. It was just Enji and Toshi sitting together side by side, watching the carnage unfold below them. Hey, Toshi, did you hear? Enji says after a moment, and he sounds serious. Toshinori looks at Enji in surprise. The crime rate this past month went up 3%. Oh, he breathes out, eyes downcast. Yeah. They stayed silent for a beat. Now more than ever, I'm the guy who's solving more incidents than anyone, Enji continues, hands tightening around his arms where they're crossed. I know most have faith in me, but I can hear it. What you've built is crumbling down. Toshinori knows the pressure that's being put on Enji. It's why he's been so busy as of late. People are scared, tensions are high, and while Endeavor has proven himself efficient for decades, he isn't All Might. People still hold him at high regard, see the two as a duo, but his lack of charisma makes the general population wary of him. Not to mention, he can't be everywhere all at once, even with his dozen of psychics. Another thing he's criticized for. All Might was a one-man show, while Endeavor leans heavily on community and teamwork. Something people have an issue with, because without the support, what has Endeavor shown himself capable of in terms of strength? Toshinori and Enji aren't stupid. They know what the Hero Commission are scrambling to do. Fill the void the symbol of peace has left. Shoes too big for even Endeavor to fill on his own. The two stay silent, letting the words and thoughts sink in and form as they watch the little kids completely overwhelm the future pro-heroes with their stellar troublemaking and sharp words. Kids have no mercy. It seems Shota has come up with a plan though, and in maybe fear of being bitten again, Bakugo lets him take the lead. I've given the children everything I can offer, Enji says, watching Shoto try to deal with the children. Toshinori smiles, knowing that all too well. Strength is important to survive in this world. The stronger you are, the higher the chance of success. All Might and Endeavor are proof of that, in a million ways. I became number 2 at 20, and then hit a roadblock. Said roadblock looked at Enji with an almost apologetic smile. It wasn't about the title. I wanted to be the strongest. I obviously could have become number 1 much earlier if I pandered to fan service as much as you do. I don't know about obviously. All Might pouted a bit. All Might's unique strength is what made him so impressive. My records, my agency, all that, it doesn't stand to that raw power. Toshinori becomes genuinely upset at that. That's not true, he argues. To the Hero Commission and the public, it's a fact. Toshinori doesn't know what to say to that. They want a new symbol. Again, the two men go quiet. I'm the number 1 now. Something I'd never understand, you said. Guilt pierces through the blonde's heart. That had been years ago, before his injury to All For One. Hearing that had been a punch to the throat. But you are, and are, right. I don't understand. I don't know what it means to be a symbol. Toshinori rubs the back of his neck, unsure of what to do or say. It's not a direct question. If anything, it sounds like Enji is venting in his own stoic way. Maybe Toshinori should jump that Enji go to therapy train. You already know everything about how I became a hero, my ambitions and reasons, the people I tried to push away and hurt. Toshinori said after a moment, looking to his brother who side-eyed him. Yes, he knows very well. Toshinori huffs a laugh. We've been compared to for years, but we both know we're very different, more than anybody outside of our family will know. I strove to be a symbol, but that doesn't mean you do too. He smiles at the redhead. Take your time. I know you'll figure it out. You always do. Other than working hard, what else can I do? Enji sighs, sounding and looking tired, as if confiding in his older brother pulled the intimidating mask off a bit. He pays attention as Shoto tries and fails miserably to connect with the kids. That comes from me. My bad, Shoto, he says under his breath, which gets a laugh from Toshinori. I want to reassure everyone that I'll be able to continue protecting them. Toshinori smiles. Him and Shoto are very different, but so similar. But I don't know how. Toshinori doesn't say anything. They watch the students literally fighting the tiny kids and getting overwhelmed. If Toya was here, he'd be blabbering about the quirk singularity doomsday theory. Things looked like they were going bad down there. The students were frantic. And then Shoto creates a beautiful ice slide with the help of Bakugo, Inasa, and Kamiya for the kids to enjoy. With the illusions making a beautiful fantasy-like sky of different glittering hues, it's like a scene out of a dream. Shoto's idea. Show the kids what else they can do with their quirks. Because he can't make complicated forms with his ice, he used the kids' quirks as a skeleton base. He calls their quirks splendid, and the kids clamber to be next in line for the slide. Bakugo grabs a kid's hand, the one who was riling up all his young classmates. He says something to him with an uncharacteristically soft expression. Toshinori smiles. Young Bakugo is growing too. Little acts, kind words, a smile, a reassurance, an encouraging redirection, getting them all involved even in the ice cleanup. Shoto's plan worked. A focus on connection and community. I think, Toshinori smiles at Enji, showing everyone what you're really made of is more than enough, Endeavor. For their sake. Enji's expression softens. Good job, Shoto. Enji praises as he and the teachers meet the kids after they all got changed. Your leadership skills have improved. Shoto beams up at his dad. See what you're capable of when you don't bite. Okay, the bit is over. It's growing old, Shoto whines, but never stops smiling. I only did what the family always does. See the potential in others and guide them in the right direction. Though I don't think I'm any good at speaking to little kids. Neither am I, but you've done better than I ever could. I'm proud of you, Enji reassures, ruffling Shoto's mismatching hair like he's 5 again, and Shoto just giggles happily at the large hand. There's a figure lingering around them, and Enji looks at none other than Inasa Iwarashi, right? I remember meeting you. Yes, Endeavor, sir! The tall boy stands to attention with passion. Enji gets why that might have rubbed Shoto the wrong way. I just want to say I'm rooting for you. Thanks. Enji offers him a smile. He's kind of like a very fiery Toshinori. And based on how Shoto smiles at him, he can't be too bad. As Inasa turns to leave, though, Enji leans down a bit to Shoto's level. This is a moment where your mother would say, make sure to keep in touch with your friends, he said in a quiet voice. Oh, yeah, Shoto jumps. Yoarashi, give me your number. Yes! Inasa spins back around. Toshinori cackles in the distance and gives Enji a thumbs up. Interpersonal growth can happen at any age. No rest for the wicked, and even less rest for Endeavor, who returns to his agency after seeing Shoto and his brother off. Hara has been texting, telling him to take a break, but Enji sent him a photo of the lists of aid requests sent to his sidekicks, and Hara replied with, your portion will be in the fridge. At least he gets that Enji isn't doing this because he wants to, he does, but because he has and needs to. With Best Jeanist still recovering, Hawks being in a whole other part of the country, and all other heroes scrambling to keep up with their own duties in their set areas, except Mirko, who was bouncing around, like All Might used to, but much, much, much slower. Endeavor as the new number 1, officially or not, needs to keep on top of everything. His sidekicks too. And yet, his top sidekick was currently moping in the break area. Burnin, the coffee is going to spill, Endeavor warned, to which Burnin jumped out of her daze and looked at her almost overflowing cup of black coffee. She mumbled an unenthused sorry and messily slurped her too hot drink so it didn't spill. Endeavor watched her for a bit. What did Toya do? Burnin's hair whipped and brightened at the name, before it dulled and she hunched her shoulders. You know, she mumbled. I don't know, that's why I'm asking. Enji genuinely had no idea what happened. He knew Toya and Burnin had gone out to inspect the Shimura's non-existent house based on the report Burnin had done for him, and already then she'd looked forlorn. No, I mean... Burnin looked embarrassed, rubbed her cheeks as if to wipe something away. Enji could only guess. I mean, that She trips over her own thoughts and words, face becoming redder and redder. It's not like you to stutter. Burnin slumped completely against the counter in the break room, her hair almost flopping over her back in misery, like the fire was dying out. She let out a long, low whine. She's actually genuinely upset about something, and based on the timeline of events and general knowledge of his top sidekick and eldest son, it had to do with Toya. Enji was at a loss what to do about this. I approve if that's something either of you are worried about, he tries dumbly. It's not. Enji tries to not take that personally. I didn't put it in the report, obviously, but when we went to investigate the Shimura, he was upset because there wasn't much to work with. I gave him my findings on twice to cheer him up, and... Her face and hair burned bright, even though she looked upset. He was really happy. He kissed my cheek and said he loved me. Endeavor hadn't moved from the doorway. He was just staring at his sidekick, almost afraid him breathing too loudly would make things more awkward and Burnin would stop talking. But for Toya to do that, impulsively or not as a reaction, it's genuine. And Enji knew for a while that his son liked Burnin, ever since that birthday party. He was too excited and didn't realize what he'd done, So later I asked him about it, and Vernon slumped against the counter again, and if NG didn't know better, he thought he'd heard a sob. Maybe he actually didn't know better, and Vernon really was crying. He didn't dare move. Vernon, sensing her boss was at a loss, meekly, never the word to refer to Vernon, pulled her phone out of her pocket and showed him the last text she got from Toya. Their last interactions in weeks by now. Not to make things weird, but can we talk about you kissing me on the cheek and saying you love me? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. It was inappropriate. Toya really is his son, the poor sod. Chapter 116. Oxidation. Natsuo. The young pro-hero jumped at his father's stern tone. It wasn't Endeavor speaking to Frostbite, despite the two being in their suits, but a father addressing his son seriously. Are you alright? Natsuo mirrors his father's scowl, not understanding the question. I know you're worried about your argument with Toya, but based on what Gran Torino shared and Sir Naitai's reports of the meetings before the raid, I'm worried about you. Still, Natsuo is confused. He didn't do anything wrong, did he? A large hand cups his neck and jaw, worry entering his father's blue eyes. You're not letting Overhaul get to your head, are you? He hadn't been the most jovial in the lead up to the raid. Maybe a little, Natsuo admits. With everything that had been done to Eri, seeing the state she was in, how Overhaul had almost killed Sir Naitai, rendered Mirio quirkless, the League putting Snatch in a coma, and just everything, Natsuo had grown bitter. I'm just angry. I don't understand how anyone could do those things. And I don't get why I'm supposed to care when something bad happens to them in return. Enji sighs softly for his nose. He understands. Majority of the time, for him, villains and criminals are just that. Vigilantes too. With how much he does, it's easier to get the job done and leave the rest of the other professionals. Only a handful of times has Endeavor meddled further with criminals than just handing them to the police, like with Ending, who was sent to a psych ward due to his prompting. Enji can deal with situations like this better because he grew up with crime and death being rampant all around him and has years of experience now to cope with terrible cases better. But this is Natsuo's first year as a full-fledged pro-hero. After the ocean rescue and the situation with the crawler, this was his big break, and a nasty one at that. Human experimentations on a child committed in the shadows of the Yakuza. It's the sort of thing you see in horror movies, yet all too real. Take the weekend off, Enji urges, which gets him an annoyed look from Natsuo. I'm serious. Work the rest of the week, but take the weekend off. Spend time with your mother, sister, and grandfather. Cool off. It wasn't intentional, but the phrase makes Natsuo roll his eyes, and smile a bit at his father. Okay, he sighs, before relaxing his shoulders and leaning forward to rest his forehead against his father's chest. Thanks, Dad. He'd messaged Miki too. Higari Maijima, the excavation hero, power loader, is very fond of Toya, as is Chiyo, Shuzenji, recovery girl, and all the other teachers. He's an energetic, insane firecracker of a young man, fun and interesting to be around. He works hard and is good company. Maybe that's why it's so noticeable that he isn't around. It's too quiet. There's no white laboratory coat running around UA with a million sheets and yapping insanity. It becomes a worry when, again, Endeavor calls up the teacher's office and asks if they've heard from him at all. I've tried calling him all day, but got nothing back. He got into an argument about Shigaraki with Frostbite and Gran Torino, and I'm worried it's gotten to his head. Endeavor voices, and the teachers understand, especially Aizawa, who has Bakugo and Midoriya in his class. That's why Higari and Chiyo knock on the young man's door the same evening, before All Might and Present Mike returned with the remedial course kids. No answer. Higari tries again, his face hidden by his hair. Still nothing. Toya, he calls out. A meowing is heard, and it betrays Toya's location. He's in there, just ignoring them. Toya, you haven't come out all day. Are you okay? Still no answer. like Toya was holding his breath and waiting for them to leave. That had worked on his mother, grandfather, and father when he was a child, after all. Power Loader, however, isn't cut of the same fabric as his family. He grabs the door handle and tries to open it. It rattles aggressively. Toya opened the door. Still nothing. And Higari has lost his patience. On the count of 3, I'm kicking the door down. He wouldn't. Would he? 1, 2. A second to give Toya the chance to change his mind. 3. It's terrifying how strong the scrawny man really is. The door doesn't exactly fly off the hinges, but it gets close, the entire structure shaking hard enough to dislodge the chair from under the handle keeping it shut. It swings open and slams against the wall, which of course makes both Toya and Harusame jump, although the latter is still in Toya's hoodie like a giant lump. "What the hell?" Toya exclaims. He looks rough. Pale face, dark bags under his eyes that are squinting at the bright light of the corridor. The room smells stuffy and is much too warm. "You look atrocious, kid," Higari comments, pointing a large orange finger at him. "Have you slept at all?" "What if I haven't? I'm not a little kid. I cannot sleep if I want to." Toya is snappy, clearly exhausted, angry and riled up about something. "Go away!" "Your dad called." That shuts Toya up, and he looks guiltily at both Higari and Chiyo. He bites his lower lip and looks away, back to the pile of stuff on his desk that he's been suffering over for the last almost 24 hours. "He said you got into an argument over Shigaraki." Toya says nothing, pulls his hoodie up enough to free Harusame, who trots out of his room to go find Sushi to cuddle with. "That stunt with Overhaul was... for me, I know," Toya snaps, shoulders hunched. "I don't want to hear it." "Toya, dear, why don't you sleep?" Chiyo walked in, but stopped when Toya flinched and covered his desk with his arms, glaring at her. He had something to hide. He was about as subtle as a child trying to cover the computer screen because they're on a website they shouldn't be on. "What are you up to?" "Nothing," Toya grumbles. If he was a dog, his hackles would be raising, especially with how he was gritting his teeth. "It's nothing. Go away." Chiyo and Higari, indeed, do not go away. "I said, get out!" Toya yells, annoyed, and he lurches to his feet. The sudden standing makes him lightheaded and he sways, threatening to fall. Higari flinches forward to try and catch him, but Toya steadies himself with a hand on his desk, still defensive of its content. "Back off! I said out!" "What's all this racket?" Midnight whines, tired after a long school day. She saw Harusame and Sushi cuddling on the couch, so assumed Toya was out and about too. First a loud bang, and now all this yelling. She walks on the scene of Toya looking like he's out for blood, and the 2 off-duty pro-heroes being the target. "Oh dear." "Toya, you haven't slept, ate, or drank. You're riled up. Just take a break," Higari offered. "Don't tell me what to do!" Toya shouts. "I can't research the league. I can't go out alone. I can't quirk train. What am I allowed to do, exactly?" His words are slurring from exhaustion, and his eyes are hazy, glazed over with something. "You're not taking this from me too!" "No, we're not, but you're hurting yourself," Chiyo started. "Better me than somebody else. Maybe if I hit rock bottom hard enough this time, I'll actually give up like Tomura wants." Toya's speaking nonsense. He isn't thinking rationally, and with the way he slams his fist on his desk, making the entire thing rattle, he's getting violent. "Alright, that's enough. Sleepy time." Midnight steps forward, and with controlled grace, smacks Toya with a face full of her sleep-inducing aroma, avoiding the other 2 adults. Instantly, exhausted and on the verge of a breakdown, Toya's eyes roll up in their sockets and he falls into Midnight's arms. "Poor kid," she sighs as she lowers to her knees, letting passed-out Toya's head rest on her thighs. What was he stressing over? Higari and Chiyo looked to each other, and then to his desk he'd been so protective of. Toya didn't wake up till the next day, right around noon. He was completely out of it, didn't recognize his environment, and felt so sick he might throw up. Not a first, and definitely not the last time. Blinking his bleary eyes, he noticed a needle stuck into his arm connected to an IV bag. The walls are stark white and the air smells sterile. Not a hospital. The sounds of teenagers talking and footsteps in a corridor tells Toya he's still in UA. The nurse's office, then. He groans as he sits up, which is when he realizes the nausea was from hunger, not actual sickness. You're up. A deep, warm voice hits Toya like a freight train, and his eyes focus on Endeavor. His dad. Are you doing okay? Toya's slightly open mouth shuts and he tightens his lips into a thin line, ashamed. Again. His father doesn't push it, and instead offers him a bowl of rice porridge with scallions and egg mixed in. Can you eat? Toya stares with disinterest. For me, please, Candlelight. Toya takes the bowl and wolfs it down. He was definitely hungry. Why are you here? He asks through a mouthful. His dad is in his Endeavor getup. Aren't you busy? Extremely. But when I heard from the teachers, it's definitely from Toshinori, Toya thinks, what happened last night, I think coming here during my lunch break is reasonable. His father does look tired. With villains and criminals feeling empowered after All Might's retirement, Endeavor's never been so busy, not since the beginning of his career. Natsuo's covering for me. At the mentioning of his brother, Toya's face sours. He's hard-headed like you. You know he still cares. I know, Toya grumbles, handing the now empty bowl back to his father and slumping in the bed. Just the whole thing with Overhaul, with Tomura. He rubs his eyes, then jolts, looking panicked and starting to struggle out of bed aggressively enough it pulls on the IV in his arm. Nobody, my notes. Two large hands grab him by the upper arm and force him back into bed. Nobody touched or looked at your notes, Enji said sternly, a scowl on his face. Stay in bed. Toya does as he's told. It's not reassuring when you react like that. Like a dog caught doing something bad, Toya averts his gaze. I know she's busy with that little girl, but maybe you should start your sessions with Dr. Tsuzura again. And risk this being leaked to the league? No thanks. Toya motions to himself. Enji doesn't know what to say, so says nothing as the two just sit together. Why am I like this? The words are mournful and leave Toya's mouth before he can stop them. Am I really just an obsessed freak who is cursed to hurt everyone who gives the slightest damn about me? Enji scratches his chin. Guilt. Toya narrows his eyes on him suspiciously. That's probably my fault. I'm like that too. Enji offers. Toya rolls his eyes. Of course it's inherited. Why wouldn't it be? I'm also terrible with knowing what to say to the woman I love. Toya's face explodes into deep shades of reds. Nothing was said, but he knew. Burnin, don't, oh my god, don't. Toya covers his face with his arms, leaning back onto his pillow as his ears burned. Am I not suffering enough? You've nuked my best sidekick's morale so much she bumped into a wall and apologized to it. Her hair is flopping. Enji is quick to point out there's more than just Toya suffering here. I think it's clear what you have and want is mutual. Toya lowers his arms and says nothing. I approve of it if that's something that worries you at all. It's not. Yeah, Bernard said that too. You spoke to her about this? Toya's in disbelief, which isn't helped by Enji's flat expression. That bad? For Bernard, really bad. Toya sighs, feeling guilty again. He always seems to do that to others, unintentionally. Does it make it worse if it's unintentional? It feels worse. I don't know what you want me to do. Toya mumbles, staring at the ceiling. What do you want to do? Enji asks with a tone so soft it took Toya by surprise. He looks at his father with tired, wide eyes. Forget everything for a moment. UA, pro heroes, duties, the league, the family, everything. What do you want to do, right now? Toya's jaw clenches and his lips pull down. His eyes burn. Vernon wasn't sure what to expect when Endeavor called her to his office in the late afternoon, but it wasn't Toya standing there stiffly in front of his father's desk with a distinct lack of said father. Just the two of them in the room, the orange-red sky outside and city lights below. Toya looks unkempt. Or rather, like he scrubbed himself raw in the shower and his hairbrush lost its fight to his messy mop of white hair. It's as orderly as his inner crazy scientist will let him. Exactly the way Vernon loves him, wrinkled shirt and all, though she'd like to see him more well-rested. The door clicks shut behind Vernon, whose before dull hair slowly springs back to life as she walks to the center of the room, standing in front of the young man. The two stare at each other for a while, the air tense and awkward, but somehow neither wanted to leave. Toya. The name left like a relieved sigh from between Vernon's fangs. That kicks adrenaline into Toya's system, and with a painful thud drops to his hands and knees, forehead to the ground as he prostrates in front of Vernon. What? I'm sorry! Toya shouts, head still down, before Vernon can exclaim her surprise. She stares at him in shock. This really wasn't what she expected. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I was embarrassed and worried of ruining our friendship, so I sent that text about considering your feelings. I'm sorry. Vernon is stunted, frozen in place with her hands slightly stretched out in a paused attempt to pull the man up. I like you a lot, Moe. I have for a while, and I want us to be more than friends. It's everything Moe wants to hear, yet she can feel it coming. The oh-so-famous, but there it is. What is he going to say now to try and deter her? Self-sabotage himself into loneliness. I can't ask that of you right now. You deserve someone in a healthy, not obsessed headspace, and that's just not where I am right now. Silence stretches out. Toya can't see Moe's expression. His eyes are shut tight and facing the floor anyway. His heart is beating fast in his chest, so fast he thinks it'll explode. He's not ashamed of his pose, nor of his feelings, but rather of having put the woman he's grown so fond of in such a situation. She's so amazing and beautiful and skilled and cool, and someone like him, a nerdy, obsessed loser. What if... The woman's voice is uncharacteristically gentle, with a soft tremble like she's nervous. What if I like you no matter your headspace? Toya's heart tightens painfully. His eyes burn. I don't like me when I'm like this. I don't like myself at the best of times. Things he said many times over the years to Dr. Tsuzura, things he'd tried to work on since the accident. But it never seems to fully go away, just quietens down for a while. I get angry, mean, I can get violent, and I don't want that for you. I'm a difficult person. It doesn't hurt to say these things. It hurts that someone he loves as much as Moe would want a person like him. I love you, Moe. That's why I can't. Not right now. How can he love her when he barely tolerates himself? Again, silence. His arms are starting to tremble and his knees hurt. His forehead is throbbing. He hears movement, gentle footsteps getting closer, and a warm presence in front of him. He doesn't dare look up. Instead, the presence shifts, and a hand slips under his chin, gently encouraging him to lift his head. Toya does, eyes downcast and unable to meet those fiery orange-red eyes he's fallen in love with. Not right now. His words are muttered back to him. But maybe someday? Blues snap up and meet Moa's blushing face, framed by vibrant green fire that doesn't burn, that won't hurt Toya. Your self-sabotaging isn't going to get rid of me that easily. There's a tease in that tone, a little fanged smile that makes Toya melt, and he just wants to get lost in her voice. Moa is kneeling in front of him, holding the sides of his face in both of her hands like he's something precious, something she's scared of dropping and losing forever. Your weird ideas, obsessive ramblings, and crazy passion are part of why I love you very much, Toya. These things you don't like about yourself, I find them easily lovable. Toya's eyes burn. Those stupid tears that he wants to say are filled with the pain and guilt of making a woman like Moa fall for a weak man like him, but they're not. Tears of joy and relief drip down his face, that Moa isn't mad with him, that it's mutual, that there's a chance, something to look forward to. Someday, I promise. Toya shifts onto his knees and covers both Moa's hands with his own, leaning into her touch with tears dripping from his lashes still. Someday soon? A little choked up laugh. A joke, a hope, a bit of everything. Toya can't help it. He smiles and returns a strange chuckle. I hope so, he admits. There's no kiss. They're not there yet. But they do hug. It's tight, and Toya feels the flickering of Moa's burning hair around and across his skin, embraces her warmth and how the two of them feel together. Toya definitely wants more of this, he thinks. Moa knows she wants more of this. The two stay like this, feeling each other's heartbeats, long enough for the sky to get dark. Only then did they decide to pull away. With the tips of their fingers holding, they got up and out of the office. They were met with endeavour out in the corridor. The number one said nothing, with his flames framing his shoulders and face, but his eyes did flicker down to their not quite hand-holding, which made his son and psychic blush. Yet they didn't pull away. No shame, just a bit embarrassed. I sent Tartarus the request to meet Overhaul. You'll be waiting a while. Endeavour breaks the awkwardness, to which Toya hums and wipes his face with his free hand. His eyes are puffy from crying, but that's not anything his family and Moe haven't seen before. Vernon, could you bring Toya back to UA? Yes, boss. Enji watches the two walk down the corridor, still holding hands. He sighs once they're out of sight and texts his father and wife. Toya will be okay. He's pulled through worse before. He just needs to not be alone and redirect his stress to something productive. Natsuo will be okay too. He's dealing with a lot emotionally after Eri, and that takes time to digest. Little by little, things will fall into place in a new way. Things can't ever really go back to the way things were, not in times like this where change is constant. It'll be alright. Healthy change is good and not something to be afraid of. And thus, life continues moving. Chapter 117. Twinkling. Life continues. The students attend their classes, their after-school activities, and enjoy their free time. Teachers do their jobs, mark homework, and update parents, all might exploring what his manner of teaching really is. The pro-heroes and civilians adapt to a distinctive lack of the symbol of peace, and more people look to Endeavour with pleading looks for reassurance. He makes no comment and works, like he has for decades. Vernon continues keeping an eye out for the League's activities. Radio silence. But it saves Toya some anguish. Toya continues his own studies, which he still has, somehow. You'd think 2 kidnapping attempts and general drama would extend his deadlines. Even if that was an option, Toya wouldn't take it. He waits for an answer from Tartarus about him meeting Overhaul. His notes he'd spent 24 hours on were safely filed and kept atop his desk, untouched but ready for the right time. He hasn't spoken with his frosty brother since the argument. Natsuo reaches out to his friends. Mogura and Ibara haven't made up. They have both visited Saichi though, as have Yawara and Ayahiko. Those two are spending a lot more time together. Ibara has been visiting that old man and his dog she saved a lot, as well as speaking out online about heteromorph discrimination. Mogura hasn't. She puts her head down and works. Natsuo tries to do the same, makes time to see Miki. Sir Naitai is radio silent. He, Mirio, and Dr. Tezura are focusing on helping Eri. They're dedicated, is all Aizawa offers when he comes back from a visit. Things are peaceful for the most part. Crimes have risen a little, but that went down a bit too after a peak. Criminals soon learned Endeavour and the Flaming Sidekickers could be anywhere at any time, that the likes of Hawks and Mirko don't mess around, and but despite the criticisms of the police and lackluster heroes getting louder, people still had faith in the pros to do their jobs. It's peaceful, yet tensions are rising. The Billboard chart event is coming up, and for the first time in decades, there will be no All Might. One change, but a silently terrifying one nobody could shake off. There is no symbol. But while civilians are stressing over that, UA students have classes and training to sweat over. not to mention the school festival looming in the horizon. Something Toya busies himself with. Outside of school hours, he doesn't see Shoto much. His brother is often hanging out with his friends or out for remedial course training anyway. Toya spends time with the teachers, learns from his peers, but majority of the time, he's keeping up with the students' progress. Or lack thereof in the case of Aoyama. Between the beginning of the school year in March to now in late September melting into October, all of the students had improved massively. New skills and tricks, new moves, improved tolerance to their quirks, and heightened physical attributes. Except Aoyama. When it came to tolerance of this quirk, at least. And Toya couldn't shake off the feeling that Aoyama's quirk didn't fit his body. Like Tomura's. Even Izuku had gotten more and more used to his own alien ability, but it's like Aoyama was cut of the same fabric as Toya to a lesser extent. He might not spontaneously combust when he uses his quirk, but were the stomach aches and general internal injuries worth it? Especially when you depend on a support item that could break and doesn't do all that much. Toya stares flatly at Deku and Aoyama talking while the latter takes a break from training. The latter needed a change of clothes after an unfortunate bowel movement, so this wasn't the most fitting moment to penalize the boy. Toya held off until school was over for the day and only then made a trip to the 1A dorms. He was welcomed with suspicion. "Why are you here?" Shota asked with narrowed eyes. "I'm a teacher. I can go where I want." Toya mirrored his brother. "You're a nurse's assistant for work experience. You never visit me without texting." The youngest and oldest Todoroki brothers' standoff was a sight to behold for Shota's classmates, and all that was needed was some old-school Western music to fit the mood. "Not everything is about you, Peppermint. I am here for someone else." Toya spoke through clenched teeth, eyeing his younger brother like he was going to headbutt him. "What? Why?" Immediately, Shoto's suspicious expression dropped to one of offense. Why would his big brother be here for anybody else but him? How dare? For Izuku? Actually, I'd like to talk to Aoyama. I have some notes I want to go over. Toya went back to normal and looked over to Class 1A, who were all clustered around the sofas and coffee table, where Momo and Sato had set up tea and snacks. Toya eyed for the specific shade of blonde he wanted and pointed dramatically at the shiniest of the lot. "You, with me." Aoyama jumped but tried to cover it with a dashing pose. "Of course!" He acted like he revelled in the attention, speaking with a false French accent that settled at the back of his throat. But other than that, he obediently hurried to Toya and led the man to his bedroom so the two could speak in privacy. Like everything else about Aoyama, his room was an obnoxious bombardment of sparkles, mirrors everywhere, and a whole suit of armor in the corner. For some reason, Toya almost felt like he needed sunglasses. "What is it you wanted to discuss, mon ami?" "Your quirk performance." Toya showed his notes to Aoyama, which he carried in a file. "I'm just gonna say it. You've barely improved." Aoyama's entire demeanor dropped. The sparkle left his eyes, and he even looked away from Toya. Avoidant. "I could already tell you were behind at the beginning of the year, but I didn't want to say anything and give you a chance. It's been a few months, and I'm worried." Aoyama's hands clenched and unclenched as one held his elbow and the other rubbed up and down his fancy trousers. Nervous. No attempt to hide it. "I know," he muttered. Even the Frenchisms were gone now. His voice is quiet. "I am trying. I'm not saying you're not. You're a great student. That's not what worries me." Toya keeps his voice gentle, smiles at the boy. "Using your quirk so much, all that potential internal damage, I don't want your gut exploding or something. You think that's possible?" Aoyama looks at him, a bit panicked. "I don't know for sure. Maybe overusing your quirk could give you cancer for all I know. I don't know how much that support item is really doing. It's the best there is. My parents got it for me." He sounds defensive. Protective of his parents, even. Toya can understand that. He clearly loves them and they provided for him. From what Toya knew, they were well off. They got him the best money could buy, but is that enough? I can't quit the hero course, if that's what you're suggesting. Toya doesn't know what he's suggesting. He rubs his neck. Would you just organize getting some scans and checkups of Recovery Girl for me? Just to be sure. Also blood tests to see if you're lacking anything. It's softly asked. Toya isn't accusing Aoyama. He's not demanding, he's not disappointed, nor even impatient. He's just worried for him. Aoyama swallows thickly. Toya's expression is so gentle, definition of big brotherly. Aoyama nods at Toya's request. If that'll help reassure the young man, Aoyama will do that. Even though he could just tell him the truth. He wants to say something. Admit everything. But he doesn't. He can't. Thank you, Aoyama mutters, a small voice that doesn't fit his usual extravaganza, and it surprises Toya. For keeping an eye on me. All of us. Of course, it's my job, and I care about you kids. Being a pro hero is no easy job, despite what people say, and I want to make sure you'll all be ready and set when the time comes. Toya smiles at the blonde, slapping his shoulder good-naturedly. Sorry for jumping you with this. The man is apologetic as he leaves the high schooler's bedroom. Whatever gloom there might have been before, Aoyama dashes it away instantly with a dramatic pose. No problème. The badly rolled R of the French word has Toya snickering. Have some cheese before you go. Out of who knows where, a piece of camembert is produced. Toya stares at it for a moment as it's wagged in front of his face. You know, lactose intolerance is prevalent in Japan. Do you think that could perish the thought? Chapter 118. Lenitive. The school festival snuck up on the students faster than any could prepare for. Especially Shoto and Bakugo, who in the midst of everything were still doing their extra training with Gangorka. But despite his exhaustion, the excitement in the class was palpable, and it made Shoto eager to participate in the enjoyment too. Although a small handful of his classmates were slightly worried, the ones that had partaken in the Shihasakai raid. Nobody had been mortally wounded, and all recovered or were recovering, but for Uraraka, Tsuyu, Kirishima, and Choji, that had been their first big real-world mission. Izuku too, technically, but he'd faced a lot already. Kirishima was the most verbal about his concerns. With everything going on, were they really putting on a festival for the school? Aizawa appreciated the prudence, however. Remember, UA consists of more than the hero course. This festival is for everyone else to shine too. We have the sports festival, after all. With two siblings that had been in general studies, Shoto hadn't forgotten that little detail. The others had, though. Shoto, did you go to the school festival for your older siblings? Izuku asked when the class had some downtime. Yeah, my whole family went. Though this year it's going to be students only for security reasons, which is a shame. Shoto wanted to show off to his family too like they had. In their first year, Toya and Fuyumi's class had a face painting stand led by one of Fuyumi's friends. They did a food stall in their second year, though the gimmick was frying weird shapes. In their third year, they did shadow puppets, recreating some favourite All Might and Endeavour moments. Compromise, because Toya was set on doing something Endeavour-themed. Izuku and Tenya laughed at that. Sounded about right. The face painting idea is so cute! Hagakure squealed, joined in by Mina. What about Frostbite? It was some sort of cosplay cafe, a collaboration with Lunch Rush, because nobody can compete with his food, like Tenya said. Shoto shrugged with a smile. Second year was flower making, I think, Rose and Mole Girl's idea. They had a competition for best bouquet at the end of the day. In their third year, they did a candy making workshop. Because of Pop Rocks, right? Sato piped in, an appreciator of the fellow food-themed hero. Shoto nodded in reply. I guess sky's the limit then, Seto hummed, rubbing his chin in thought. Though there's only so many things we can do before we're repeating what previous classes are doing. The whole class sighed, staring at the blackboard of all the listed ideas. Despite Tenya and Momo's best efforts, nobody could agree on a single idea by the time the bell rang. With the threat of doing a regular class open house by Aizawa, everybody was stressing a bit. Shoto went to his go-to solution. Calling his family. Specifically, his mother, father, and grandfather. Dad, you were class rep. What did you do for your festivals? Shoto asked after a quick catch-up with his Todoroki elders. Everybody was doing fine and dandy, they were having dinner together, Fumi was out with some old school friends, and Natsuo was working. We did a sweet food stand in our first year with a focus on mochi. Uraraka would like that, Shoto thinks, slightly enamored that she and her father shared a favorite food. Tenya says doing anything food-related would be pointless because we can't compete with Lunch Runch's cooking, and we don't want to copy Natsuo's first year idea. He wasn't around when I was in UA. The other 2 years, my class was set on an art exhibition and a maid cafe. Though, because there were more guys than girls, we did a butler cafe instead. It was surprisingly popular. Enji reminisced. Not really fondly, just matter of fact as with everything. Wish I had been there. Ray sighed in lament. I still have some photos somewhere. I could try to dig them out. Harrow offered from somewhere in the room, at which Ray squealed. Shoto stared at his father's face, turning several shades of red on his phone. Kind of surprised you partook in that, Shoto snorted, amused to hear of this side of his father. My class was pushy about me joining in. I don't get why. Ray's "I do" was promptly ignored. I usually did the preparation side of things, cooking and keeping the general peace. Shoto liked the idea of doing that. He's not much of a performer or people person. He's kind of awkward and weirdly meek with huge groups of people. So he'd like doing the background work of things. Ray, what were your festivals like? Shoto's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. I thought Mum was homeschooled. Oh, I was, but your grandparents still wanted to replicate tradition. Ray reappeared into the frame with some tea in her hands. Tea making, designing a kimono, traditional headwear, entering stuff on its own, not so much of strict parents breathing down your neck. Shoto hummed at that. It did sound fun, but based on what little he remembered of Ray's parents, the fun was probably shot and killed before the idea could even be written on paper. Grandpa, he called out to get the older man's attention. Mine weren't anything interesting like Ray's or UA's, that's for sure, Harrow cackled, taking the phone from Enji to look at his youngest grandson. Our festivals were always just about showing off the students' abilities. Akihime was class rep, so she led the charge. It usually focused on sports or some sort of performance. Harrow kept out the part where it was clearly an attempt to impress Akihime's parents, but for Akihime to prove she was enough, and for Harrow to try and get them to like him. They never succeeded, obviously. Harrow smiled at Shoto. Have a think with your class. Just remember, no matter what you choose, at the end of the day, it's about boosting morale and motivation. That's the whole point of a school festival. That stuck with Shoto, and he let out a soft hum. What did he enjoy that others could too? What did his family do together? Food-related things were out of the question. Playing video games was a good one, but that would be hard to involve everyone, and he didn't want to take attention away from the support class. Tech is their thing. Working out as a family was an option, but all the students did was training, so that's out of the question. Although a hero core simulation could be really funny, like a parody sort of thing. Too complex for this year, maybe. What else? I think I have an idea, Shoto chirped happily. It got him a smile from his father, mother, and grandfather before he ended the call. A rave? Talk about unexpected. Since when are you a party animal? I've never been to one, but they always look like a lot of fun. Shoto smiled to his class as he showed a video of a live concert on Tenya's laptop. When my family went on a road trip some years ago, we listened to and sang a lot of songs during the journey, and it was really fun. Something like this could be just what we need. Shoto smiled to Tenya. Tenya is right. We should put together an event that everyone can enjoy. Something like what he'd done with the kids in training. Something fun, colourful and bright. Something Eri would enjoy. It sounded like something she'd enjoy, Izuku thought as he went to meet up with Natsuo, who'd escort him to the hospital. He was excited to see the little girl again. He hadn't seen her since she'd been saved. Neither had Natsuo, come to think of it. Yo, Izuku! Natsuo waved at him from the entrance of the school grounds. He was leaning against a car as Izuku walked up to him with a smile that fell into confusion. I'm driving us. You drive? Izuku asked, surprised. Oh, yeah, I drive. Natsuo snorted with a shrug. He's not as talkative as usual. He looks tired. I passed my driving test last week. Izuku stared at him in bewilderment. What? Shoto and Toya didn't say anything about that, the boy pointed out. Natsuo's face soured. I didn't tell them. There's something there, and Izuku doesn't know if he should poke at it. He does. I would have thought Big Sis Fuyu would have told them, then, he said as Natsuo pulled onto the road and started the trip towards the hospital. I told her to, but she told me to tell Toya so he could tell Shoto. Natsuo grumbled. But I'm not talking to Toya right now. Natsuo could feel Izuku's stare burning a hole into the side of his skull. The kid is nosy. Look, we got into an argument and I'm still mad about it. I don't want to talk about it. That had been well over a month ago, and still Toya and Natsuo hadn't spoken. Even Miki had told him he should start talking to him again, but Natsuo couldn't bring himself to. Seeing Toya regress to how he'd been before the accident, it opened an old wound, and he just needed time. The rest of the drive to the hospital was quiet, but as soon as they arrived, the mood shifted from awkward to bright and bubbly. Mirio came bounding and smiling towards them in the car park, smiling with so much happy energy Izuku thought he'd go blind. He'd recovered well and was full of optimism despite his quirkless state. Sir Night-Eye too. His arm wasn't in a cast anymore, although it was still weak and he couldn't grab with it very well. He'd been doing some physical rehab for the last month. Eri's doing great too. Dr. Tozura is a gem. She's been really encouraging with having Eri train her quirk. The more she does, the smaller her horn gets. Having Aizawa come in and help has really taken a load off. If not for him, it'd be stressful if Eri lost control of her ability. Mira explained with a bright smile. Eri, look who came to visit! Hi Eri, you look well. Natsuo grinned as he crouched in front of her. Eri still hasn't smiled. Not once since she's been rescued. But even without that, she looks so much better. Fuyumi's old clothes fit her like a charm, and she's the image of what a pampered little girl should be. He recognizes the outfit she's in. Red dungarees with a white turtleneck. He didn't recognize the red apple clip in her hair, though. Cute clip. Miss Yumi got it for me. Eri blushed a little, looking at the woman smiling next to her. I like apples. They're her favorite fruit, Mirio added helpfully. Eri, listen to this. Izuku's class is organizing a concert for the school festival. A festival? Eri tilted her head. She hadn't ever been to one. Izuku and Mirio started excitedly telling her about it. She listened attentively, curious and lively. Even if she wasn't any good at smiling, even if doubt and guilt still held her tight and every night she had nightmares of being cut up and put back together again, she's alive. A little girl curious about the world. And that makes Natsuo mad at Overhaul all over again. Being a bad guardian is one thing. Human experimentations on a child is a whole other thing. He doesn't understand why Toya isn't livid about it. So Night-Eye, could Eri come to the festival? Hearing Izuku's request brought Natsuo out of his angry thoughts. Quirk-wise, it should be fine, the older man hummed, using his strong hand to cup his chin. If Aizawa and the principal are fine with it, I don't see why not. I would only be a little worried about the crowds, Dr. Tozura piped up. Yes, Eri has been doing great in the safety of the hospital, but noisy crowds full of high school students? I trust you boys to take care of her, but I don't know if the noise won't be too much for her. Candied apples. Eri drooled absent-mindedly at the thought of sweeter apples. But the idea of crowds and people and two strong smells and eyes on her, that was a lot. She shrunk in on herself. I really want to go, she muttered softly, her little hand going to tug at Sir Night-Eye's sleeve. But I don't want to hurt anyone. Dr. Tozura knew she had ruined the vibe, but she had to be realistic. Eri only had a month of training her quirk a little every day. Her horn was a little smaller, but there was still the unfortunate truth that too much excitement, stress, or fear could trigger a bad reaction. And she still had a lot of power built up in her horn. It could be a disaster, and Eri wouldn't be able to survive with more on her heart. Izuku so wanted to see her smile. Mirio too, he wanted her to be happy and to have fun. With no laughter, no smiles, there can be no future. Natsuo snaps his fingers. A light bulb moment. Toya knows a musician. He has a daughter roughly Eri's age. Dr. Tsuzura's eyes brightened. Of course, she knew all about the Togari. They'd come to her after Toya referred them for family therapy. How about we organize a play date and see if Eri can deal with that? It won't be the same as a full-on concert, but if she can cope with that, surely she can cope with more fun. Eri perks up and looks at Sir Night-Eye. Please. She really wants to go. Mirai smiles softly at the little girl. He's grown fond. He can't say no. Chapter 119. Dancing. Izuku never expected himself to be a messenger pigeon, and he didn't know if he liked witnessing Toya's face going from happy to see him to souring at the mention of Natsuo to a beaming smile at the idea of calling the Togari family to organize a play date with Eri. I can ask Dr. Ujiko for their details. Dr. Ujiko was very curious about this little girl, but was understanding when Toya apologized for not being able to share any details, patient secrecy and all that. Ayata himself was quite surprised at Toya calling him, but upon a more elaborated but still scarce explanation of Eri's situation, and a few days later, Toya, Izuku, and Aizawa met Ayata, Koba, and an unknown woman at the hospital. Although, based on her light blue hair, Toya could guess who she was. Mr. Toya! Koba squealed as she ran to the man, hugging his middle. Hi! Hey, Koba! He grinned. Ayata, hey, and... This is my wife, Nijiko. Ayata introduced the woman. She had long lashes that matched her hair, and in contrast to Ayata and Koba's own darker and sharper outfits, hers was pastel and soft, although still with the rock fashion details. At least, that's what it looked like. We bought the karaoke game. Ayata held a box with a gaming console in it, and a game Toya didn't recognize. It's Koba's favorite. Nijiko's voice was quite deep compared to what Toya had expected, but it was kind nonetheless. Hopefully Eri will have fun with it too. Izuku sure hopes so. He'd do anything for Eri to have fun, even if she couldn't smile right now. Eri hid behind Sir Night-Eye's legs as introductions were made. The Togari family greeted Dr. Tsuzura enthusiastically, their former therapist delighted in seeing how well they were doing, especially bouncing and grinning Koba, who was very excited in making a new friend. The little brunette's hair was soft and tied up in a ponytail with a spiked scrunchie, wearing a long t-shirt with orange shorts, spiked bracelets on her wrists. They weren't sharp, the edges rounded, but gave off that rock look the family seemed fond of. In contrast, Eri was wearing a lilac dress with a matching bow in her hair that was tied in a ponytail. You couldn't have two more different girls. Mirio and Izuku helped Ayata set up the game as they got to know each other, and Nijiko and Tsuzura caught up. Nijiko was proudly showing off her little Koba, who had started to learn how to play the electric guitar and was getting into singing. We're working on growls these days. Nijiko ruffled Koba's hair, who giggled. Growls? Eri questioned in confusion, peeking out from behind Sir Night-Eye's legs. The man hadn't moved the entire time, waiting for Eri to grow comfortable with the new arrivals. It's a technique in metal rock. Tsuzura crouched to answer Eri, smiling sweetly at the child. Koba wants to be a rocker when she's older, don't you? Yeah! I want to be in a band and go on tour and play the electric guitar! Koba jumped in excitement at the thought, with loud music and colours and flashing lights. Eri blinked at the girl roughly her age, curious. Is that what a concert is like? She asked, separating herself from Night-Eye as she grew more confident. It's not scary? It can be a bit, but it's really fun. It's a good scary. Koba's freckly face was nothing but joy at speaking about her favourite thing, not caring that Eri was on the cautious and shy side as long as she got to make a new friend. Okay, the game's ready. Ayata called to Koba, who squealed and reached out for Eri's hand. Come on, let's play! Eri's small, okay, was lost as she was pulled around the couch to sit in front of the television. They were in a shared space for hospital residents, so the television wasn't of the best quality, but it'll do to follow the words on screen. Ayata handed his daughter a toy microphone that came with the game, holding one too as he'd help teach Eri how to play the game. Follow my lead! Toya said nothing the entire time, just watched. Koba was a little older than Eri, and compared to how she'd been when Toya had first met her, he couldn't believe this was the same girl. Ayata was completely different too, no longer the bitter bully Toya had known as a child, rather a laid-back young man with an equally chill wife, the opposite of how she'd been described. At least someone took and appreciated the help Toya offered, even if there had been some tension at first. It made him feel better to see people he'd guided improve to such a happy state, but bitterness still lingered. If Tomura or Himiko just accepted my help, they could be like this too. But they didn't want help. They'd made that very clear. Ayata, as angry and bitter as he was, had come to the children's clinic for help, and after being shown the painful truth, had worked with his wife and child to get better. Because that's what they had wanted, and that's what they got. The League didn't want that. So that's not what they'd get. Toya didn't like that. Just like how he didn't like still being upset with Natsuo. Not even that, he's mad at him still. They hadn't spoken in almost 2 months, which apparently in that time alone, Natsuo had passed his driving's test and now had a car. If not for Izuku telling him in passing, he wouldn't have known that. He'd asked Shoto if he knew, whose confused look told Toya everything he needed to know. Shoto's, "You and Natsuo have been arguing?" hurt, for some reason. Toya sent Fuyumi an annoyed text and got a, "That's not for me to share, it's Natsuo's news," and Toya rolled his eyes. Apparently, everybody except he and Shoto knew, which is super great and nice. Also, his fault for not reaching out, but he didn't want to. And considering Natsuo's lack of doing the same, neither did he. Fine by Toya. He probably wouldn't have answered a phone call or text anyway. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. Toya's focus returned to the present as Aizawa peered into his vision, giving him a questioning look. Of course, he'd heard of Toya's meltdown that had required Midnight to knock him out with her quirk. So he'd be a bit concerned, yet too busy with Eri to probe him about it. Toya sniffed and avoided his gaze, looking at Koba and Eri singing instead. Well, mainly Koba singing, being a real little star as Eri meekly followed Ayata's lines with him. She was still getting used to the song, but it's clear she was having fun. At least that, Toya thought. She wasn't smiling, but her cheeks were pink and her eyes full of life, swaying a little to the beat as she followed it. Eri tracked every movement Koba did, and when the brunette reached out to her, wanting to dance, Eri accepted her hand and was led in a clumsy little groovy only kids know how to pull off. The joy was infectious, and everybody else was smiling, Izuku and Mirio bobbing their heads to the music while Tsuzura and Night Eye stood together and watched Eri with fondness. On the couch, Ayata and Nijiko leaned into each other, Ayata singing the background vocals softly as to not take away from the girl's moment. But then Koba shifted away at a particular lyric, singing it directly to her parents as she went in for a hug with her mother, leaving Eri alone in the middle of the room. Eri blinked, watching the little girl her age cuddle with her parents as her father sang his part of the song, and as her mother's hair changed from a light blue to a soft pink when she kissed Koba's hairline. Eri barely remembers her own parents. The father she killed and the mother who abandoned her at her grandfather's doorstep. She remembered her grandfather was stern but kind. He'd been upset for what her mother had done, but he'd soon fallen sick after that. And the man he had entrusted her to, he hadn't been kind. Nobody had been kind to her before she was saved. And so many people had suffered just to do that. So many people suffered for her. She had no family, no guardian. She was lost to the world because of her own quirk. She hadn't meant to, but it was still her doing. It was still her fault. Just like Overhaul always said. Tsuzura and Mirai jolted when they saw tears drip down Eri's face. She was staring at nothing, just big tears running down her cheeks. Mirai dropped the stress ball he had been using to train his still recovering hand as he and the doctor hurried to Eri and kneeled before her. What's wrong? Eri jumped at a thumb wiping the tears from her cheeks, another holding her face. Are you not having fun? It was Mr. Night Eye asking her that, looking at her with soft concern. He'd hugged her and Lemillion. A man she'd never seen had looked so relieved to see her and his student alive, and he'd hugged them both. And Miss Yumi, from the moment Eri had seen her, she felt comfortable and safe. Even when she was scared to practice her quirk on bugs or fish, Miss Yumi was there gently encouraging her. Mr. Aizawa too. He was always in the corner of the room, watching her attentively, a safety blanket for if anything went wrong. Eri sniffed and she leaned her face into their hands, holding Tozura's wrist tightly in her little hands. I'm having fun. She sniffed loudly before searching for the toy mic. She wanted to continue singing with her new friend. Koba saw the new confidence in Eri and jumped off her father's lap to join her for the final verse of the song. Koba didn't care that her face was getting wet because of Eri's tears as she sang with and hugged her, and Eri wasn't shy as she belted out the final lyrics as much as she could. She wanted to continue having fun. She wanted to see her savior smile. Eri so wanted to smile. Let's do another one, Koba squealed as the first song finished, to which Eri eagerly agreed to, the two nagging Izuku to help them pick a song together. Koba and Eri could only be encouraged to take a break when snacks and drinks were offered. Sliced apples with peanut butter and apple juice, which gave them enough sugar to power through another 5 songs before Eri looked like she was going to drop from exhaustion. Koba was an endless pit of energy though. Concerts are like this, but way bigger and fun and bright and colourful. There's special effects and dancing and music and singing and... Koba rambled off, talking about her daddy's band and how she's learning to play the electric guitar and how her mummy is always smiling and her hair is always blue now and that mummy and daddy go on motorbike rides every weekend and how she wants to be a rock star when she grows up. She tripped on her own words, repeated herself, and didn't care if anybody was listening or not. Eri didn't look it from the way her eyelids blinked heavily. She was listening intently, and her red eyes sparkled with life. If the festival was like this, but more and better with candied apples, Eri was desperate to experience that. I want to go, she yawned, swaying back and forth as she sat on the ground. Media was helping Ayata put away his belongings and snickered at how tuckered out Eri was. His teacher laughed under his breath gently at the tired little girl slurring her words and picked her up before she smacked her horn on the ground. Please, please can I go? She mumbled against Night Eye's shoulder as she felt sleep take her, safe and protected in the man's arms. Still, she reached out for Dr. Tozura as the woman came to brush the little girl's hair out of her face. I want to go with Mirio and see Izuku and his friends sing and dance. She drifted off to sleep while Koba still rambled endlessly before her mother was able to make her stop by offering her more apple slices. Tozura watched Eri snooze in Mirai's arms for a little as she thought about it, before looking to Toya and Aizawa, the former smiling and the latter nodding. Eri's quirk hadn't acted up, and even if it did, Aizawa would be at UA anyway. And she so wanted to go. There's no way they could deny her that. Everyone, can I please make a personal request? Izuku exclaimed nervously to all his friends that evening when they were scattered around the living room. Even Bakugo hadn't disappeared off the bed yet. Shoto perked his head up, surprised at his usually rather meek friend's forwardness. You all know about Eri, and, well, she's really excited about coming to the school festival. This is her first time going out, so please. With 2 hands clenched into fists in front of him, Izuku had a determined sparkle in his eyes. Let's make this concert out of this world! All his friends stared at him. Nervous sweat pricked at his neck. Had he said something wrong? Obviously! The entire class rewarded him, some standing on the coffee table and others on the sofa. It wasn't malicious, rather, everybody was smiling brightly as Kaminari and Mineta pounced on Izuku. Who do you think we are? Mina exclaimed, waving her fists in the air. We're gonna plus ultra this festival! Bakugo roared, which took Moma and Jiro by surprise, as they both cheered in agreement. Everybody get off the furniture! Tenya laments at the abuse. Shoto watched as Izuku's hair was ruffled by his friends and they joked about him thinking they wouldn't do their very best for the school, little girl to cheer up or not. He kept watching until he saw his honorary cousin's bright grin with Kaminari's arm wrapped around his shoulders, being asked about Eri by Shoji and Tsuyu. Only then, when Shoto was sure that the jokes and banter were making everybody happy, did he laugh. He'd work extra hard. And work hard everybody did. Not just Class 1A, but Class 1B and all the other courses too. Outside of UA, the heroes worked extremely hard in the absence of All Might, a weight that was felt by everybody, especially Endeavor. Frostbite did what he could to support him, as well as the Sir Nightai agency, while he focused on Eri. Slowly, the former All Might agency was being turned into a hub of sorts, name still in the workings, and life continued for heroes, civilians, and villains alike. The League were out there somewhere, doing something. Probably being a problem. Nothing Toy could do about it as long as Burn-In didn't have anything for him, so he put his head down and worked. He worked, and worked, and worked, and waited. He waited. Until finally he got the call. Tartarus has granted you permission to visit the villain overhaul. Chapter 120, Normothermic. Shoto was very upset at hearing Toya wouldn't be there to watch Class 1A's concert. This is my only chance to speak to Overhaul. Tartarus doesn't give permissions out freely. I probably got lucky because Dad's endeavor and All Might is All Might. They even allowed me to bring in my notes, Toya said as he and Shoto sat outside of the student dormitories, Harusame enjoying the autumn sun between them. I need to talk to him. Can't you delay it? You need to have fun too, not always obsessing over stuff. Shoto muttered under his breath, mouth covered by his blood orange flavored sparkling water. Toya didn't answer to that, knowing full well what Shoto was talking about. Plus, you and Natsu still haven't made up. Toya bit the inside of his cheek and said nothing. Do you hate him? Of course not, Toya sighed and rubbed his eyes. I could never. I'm just mad. Still. Shoto didn't get it. He could never stay this mad for so long at any of his siblings. Look, Peppermint, it's not. He stammered and stopped, resting his shaking hands on his thighs. It's time sensitive. I need to speak to Chisaki. Shoto disagreed. To him, Toya just wanted to. What could he possibly need? It was Natsu's fight anyway. It's not like Toya had been involved in the raid. He only helped a bit with Eri in the aftermath. Fine, Shoto sighed, before showing Toya his phone screen. By the way, have you seen this gentle criminal guy? I came across a stream, though they're quickly taken down. What's that? Toya tilted his head to get a better look. Huh, no idea. Interesting gimmick, though. I wonder what his story is. You do know you're becoming a quirk doctor, not a therapist, right? Shoto snickered, which got him an offended look from his older brother. Says the guy who keeps a diary. I'm not the one getting mental breakdowns every other second. Okay, ow, below the belt, asshole. Even as Toya pinched his cheek like their grandfather had always done, all Shoto could do was giggle at being a problem. Toya left as early as he could on the designated day, which unfortunately fell on the same one as a school festival. He was on autopilot. He got his crazed notes that he hadn't allowed anybody to look at together, got in his white Nissan, drove without a break, and went through the entire Tartarus process without speaking a single unnecessary word. Tartarus, the place that kept not only Overhaul, but Moonfish, Stain, and All for One, among others. Best not think too much about it. He had a long list of things he wanted to ask Overhaul, but had no idea what to expect. Mr. Todoroki. Prison guard Shishikura started. Toya, just Toya is fine, the younger man offered. Toya, Shishikura confirmed. Just so you're aware, Overhaul isn't in the best mental state since Shigaraki's attack. You may not get much out of him. Toya inhaled and nodded. Anything is fine. He still winced at the dead, wide-eyed stare the once mafia leader had as he entered the room. Glass separated the two, but unlike every single prisoner, Chisaki wasn't strapped or restrained. What's the point? On top of being quirkless, he has no arms below the elbow. Bags are under his eyes, his hair is disheveled, and he just looks broken. Shigaraki's message to Toya. He swallows thickly. Hello, I'm... Toya. Chisaki interrupts him, never looking up from where he's staring blankly at the ground. Toya Todoroki. He's present, at least. You know me. He's Endeavor's son, sure, and Frostbite's brother, but surely that didn't make him a person of interest to the Shirahasakai. He's just a citizen at the end of the day. Shigaraki spoke of you. Silence stretched between them, awkward, dense. Toya's hands clenched and unclenched, nervous. But why? It's not like he was in any danger. About what Tomura did, I know it was intended for me. Toya's voice is shaky, and he lowers his head in a small bow. I'm really sorry about that. The air shifts at the phrase. Toya doesn't move, his breath caught right at the back of his throat. Why are you here? Toya lets out a shaky exhale at the prisoner's question. He still doesn't lift his head, lifts his hands from his lap instead, holding the folder of his insane notes, and holds it towards Chisaki like he was offering him a business card. Obviously, he couldn't take the folder, so there's a glass in the way, and, well, Shigaraki's handiwork. After your lab was cleared out, I got a chance to read through your findings. Toya tries to even his breathing, but he's so nervous. This is his only chance to get something out of Chisaki. They're fascinating, and I wanted to ask you some questions about it. Silence again. Why? Finally, there's something other than hollowness in Chisaki's voice. Suspicion. Toya lifts his head and sees exhausted, blank golden eyes. Defeated, near dead, but conscious and narrowed on him. I want to recreate your drug, but I can't do tests based on a gut feeling. I need to know if what I want is possible. Something cracks, and the ghost of Overhaul is back. His back is straight, his eyebrows are knitted, and he's glaring at Toya. You want to mar my research? Who do you think you are? He spits through clenched teeth, livid. You couldn't begin to understand what... Eri's quirk, Rewind, is far more intricate than just rewinding living creatures back into non-existence. Toya's own interruption causes Chisaki's anger to falter as his eyes widen. Depending on how she uses it, she could rewind evolution itself. She could reset humans to how we were before the mutation that makes quirks presented itself. Achieving that, you'd have destroyed the foundation of hero society and have reverted it back several hundred years. Blue eyes stared unwaveringly at Chisaki's shocked golden orbs, piercing right into his very soul. Back to a society where the Yakuza had influence. That's what you really want, isn't it? All nervousness is gone. Toya's gaze is firm as Chisaki processes his words. His agape mouth tightens into a thin line. The authorities already knew about all that. While he hadn't given them any information, he had been unable to after Shigaraki. He was sure others had confessed, namely Rappa. He couldn't blame Kurono for speaking. Everything was lost. Their home, their ambitions, the boss. You're really loyal to your boss. The soft voice brings Chisaki out of his thoughts. Even though his sickness is your doing, everything done was to defend the Shia Hasakai's honor. Confusion creases under Chisaki's eyes, and Toya smiles a little, apologetic even. It was pretty easy to piece everything together after reading the reports. Those loyal to you didn't spill any secrets, but the wider Shia Hasakai don't think too kindly of you, even without knowing what you did to Eri. The boss is... That's the only thing he heard. He's alive. He's in the same hospital as Eri, but nobody's allowed to visit him. Doctors are doing their best to bring him out of the coma you put him in, Toya explains. He's stable. Chisaki's stiff posture relaxed into a slight slouch, eyes lowering again. That's all he cared about. If he still had his quirk, his arms, he could have... You really don't care about what you did to Eri, do you? It's not a question, rather an observation from Toya. Chisaki doesn't respond to it. Eri was a means to an end. If he could have had just her power without having to deal with the child, then he'd taken that option. Having to nullify her every time she started losing control was a hassle. She's doing great. Chisaki really doesn't care. A good doctor friend of mine is helping her train her quirk. She's a therapist too, so she's the best person to take care of Eri. No movement from the prisoner told Toya he wasn't interested. She's at a school festival right now with Lemillion. Deku's class have set up a concert. And sarcasm, thick as molasses and just as bitter. A clear, don't care. And she wants to get better. She will get better. Without you. Chisaki's eyes lift to narrow on Toya. His face is neutral, but with an underlying firmness. She's going to get better and leave you behind. She doesn't need you. She has never needed you. Toya leans forward, mirroring Chisaki's scowl. Unlike you, who has always needed her. You. An insulted growl emits from Chisaki's throat. You see her as an asset, a means to an end. You depend on her quirk to reach your goal. Her quirk is the one thing that could save you. Toya presses his index finger against the glass, pointing to Chisaki's middle, in line with his amputated arms. But she won't. We won't let her close to you, and you'll never see her again. Fury returns to Chisaki's eyes, and Toya remains unwavering. The only one who can save you is me. Silence returns like a dropped stone, heavy and skull-splitting. Disbelief in not only Chisaki's expression, but the guards watching through the cameras too. What? The word slips out of Chisaki before he even realizes. Nobody else but me understands your research, what your findings imply and could be capable of. I'm the only one willing to hear you out, and only I can give you the means to see your boss again. Toya lifts his folder again. The only person in the entire world who gives a damn about you, right here, right now, is me. I, and only I, am your saving grace. The only one you're going to get. Chisaki's mouth is slightly open in shock. What is this? He asks slowly, fury gone and replaced with wary confusion. What are you doing? I'm giving you a chance to help yourself by helping me. Toya holds his folder with 2 hands. Help me make a modified version of your drug, and I can promise you 3 things. What could you possibly have that I want? Chisaki scowls, sweat pricking at his neck. He's nervous. Toya's expression is reminiscent of frostbite's, without the anger, but that intensity. He's authoritarian. He knows he has the upper hand here, the power, just like Shigaraki had over him. Chisaki doesn't like it. Toya raises a hand with 1 finger lifted. 1. I can commission prosthetic arms from an overseas friend. They won't return you your quirk, but you'll have autonomy. A 2nd finger is raised. 2. I will ensure that your boss is taken care of and that he wakes up. Medical advances these last few years are nothing to yawn at. Chisaki's eyes widen ever so slightly, staring at the 3rd finger raise. 3. I will get you your revenge on Shigaraki. Chisaki straightens his back. He's present, aware, light returning to his eyes at the 3 promises. How? A demand. If you help me, you'll see how. You'll be integral in his demise. Toya matches his tone. That's my offer. You help me with my research, you help yourself. Chisaki feels his heart pumping. He feels alive for the first time in months. The prospect of a chance to help his boss, and a chance to do something other than rot in a prison cell. Shigaraki flashes in his mind. Their conversation, their experiment. Shigaraki was right. You're really annoying. Chisaki breathes out, almost amused. Toya can't help it. He snorts out a laugh. I know. He offers a sad smile to Chisaki. I'm the worst. He warned me about you, about your whole family. You really got into his head. So much so he used me as a message for you. I really am sorry about that. Toya lowered his head again briefly. Are you now? It's sarcastic, softly though. There's no more anger in his voice. He looks more present, more alive. More of that. Toya needs to drag it out of him. He needs the arrogant, self-important overhaul back. Are you sorry for what Frostbite did? It's not an accusation. Rather, interest. Would it help if I did? No. Then why are you asking? Chisaki doesn't answer, just stares. Toya smiles. Are you trying to figure me out? Maybe. Researcher meets researcher. With neither able to use quirks, it's a battle of wits. Right up Toya's alley, and he smiles. A little mischievous smile that makes Chisaki raise an eyebrow. I wear my bleeding heart on my sleeve. I have no secrets, just a lot of shame and insecurities. What you see is what I am, and what I say, I mean. Toya's breath shakes and his grin widens. Even the cruel things I've said in the past. Chisaki continued staring, eyes flicking up and down, a little to the side. Minute movements of him trying to catch a flinch, a wrinkle, or a strain of Toya's face to catch a lie or ulterior motive. Nothing. Just a goofy grin that promises shenanigans. Just what is this guy? Freak. Toya blinks in confusion, grin never leaving his face. That's what Shigaraki called you. A freak. A damn white knight who thinks the power of friendship will fix everything. His words. Toya stares. You said he warned you about me, but that just sounds like gossip. His grin widens. And, oh, Chisaki was right. He is annoying. You guys talked about me. I'm flattered. Oh god, he's so annoying, cooing like that. Don't make me reject your offer. Chisaki snarls. It doesn't fall to Toya. He knows he has him hook, line, and sinker. Because he's right. He's Chisaki's only helping hand. Hands. He needs 2 helping hands. Does that mean we have a deal? Toya smirks. Gold eyes narrow and stare, still trying to figure him out. Are they going to honor the deal? Chisaki motions his head to the cameras, behind which the guards are watching intently with interest. To stop Shigaraki and rehabilitate a prisoner? Oh yeah. Toya side-eyes the camera. They'd be foolish not to. So you are trying to rehabilitate me. If he had fingers, Chisaki would have done air quotes. You really are a white knight. Toya's smirking pout as he averts his eyes is a teasing move. Jokey. I help you to help myself, but really you just want to make yourself feel better that you failed to save Shigaraki. Look who's getting chatty and perceptive. Toya leans forward with a grin, eyes narrowed. Oh, this is a game now, is it? Let's say that's the case. Then, oh great heavens! I'm selfishly giving others a chance to become better people and live a good life. How terrible! How horrendous! He's so aggravating. Chisaki can't believe this man is his last hope. Selfishness isn't a very heroic trait. He pushes against Toya's dramatics. I'm not a hero. I'm a quirk doctor in training with a point to make and a lot to prove. I don't need to be heroic. That line cuts through the humor with its flat delivery. If that makes me selfish, then I'm selfish. Not that something like that should bother you. Human experimentations on a child isn't exactly a selfless act. The 2 researchers stare at each other. You're nothing like your brother. The words hit Toya in the throat. I don't know. We're both willing to use your drug for our own purposes. Toya returns the hit, and it makes Chisaki's eye twitch. The stare contest continues. Something has to give. One of them has to acquiesce. With hands on his knees, Toya does more than lower his head in apology. He bows his upper half low to the incarcerated prisoner with no power over him, to the man who is at his mercy. Yet Toya is the one who bows to him. Chisaki's eyes are wide. Please, overhaul. The words fall heavy from Toya's mouth. It seems Chisaki isn't the only one with a single hope left. The sky is orange when Toya returns to UA. He's tired, but he's happy. His heart feels light. As he pulls up to the school in his car, he sees Izuku, Mirio, and Eri at the entrance of Aizawa, Sir Naitai, and Dr. Tozuro watching them. The little girl is holding a candy apple that she's just biting into, and from her happy smile, it's clear she loves it. Wait. Happy smile. Eri smiled! Eri! Toya exclaims as he sticks his head out of the car, which makes all of them jump. How was the festival? Amazing! Eri exclaims, jumping on the spot with both hands in the air, candy apple in one. It was so much fun! A smile shines across her face. Mirai and Tazura hadn't been to the school festival. They had needed to make some arrangements while Mirio looked after her at UA. But seeing the little girl run towards them with both hands out and smiling brightly had told them all they needed. As they left to return to the hospital with Aizawa and Mirio, Mirai carried Eri on his shoulders as she happily nibbled on her red candy apple, waving animatedly at Izuku and Toya. As long as there are smiles and laughter, there is a future. Little Eri's future is bright. Mirai smiles. By the way, Izuku, did you get in a fight? Toya asks when they're gone, noticing a few scuffs here and there. Yeah, I had to go out to get ingredients for Eri's candy apple, and I fought the gentle criminal and La Brava. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, a faraway look entering his eyes for a moment. Toya recognized the name from talking to Shoto. Gentle surrendered. I left him to ectoplasm and Cementos. What a day, huh? Toya sighed. Seems he leaves for a few hours and so much happens. Tell me about them, would you? Sure. Izuku smiles. As he recalled his encounter with Gentle Criminal and La Brava on their way back to the 1A dormitories, Toya made a mental note to nudge at Detective Sakauchi about them if he could. But he was probably pushing his luck after the impromptu deal he'd made with Chisaki and how many hours he got to talk with him. He needed to talk to Aizawa, and if that went well with results, he could have another meeting with Chisaki. A lot of ifs. All of this was based on a big fat if. But he was too tired to do anything more about it today. I'm sorry I missed the show, Toya tells Class 1A as they greet him with loud exclamations. They all look tuckered out. Today had clearly been long for everyone. I can tell it went amazing with how Eri smiled. We recorded it! Mina and Kaminari posed dramatically with Aoyama, who held a memory card. Shoto said you wouldn't be able to make it, so we thought why not make a live recording? Then we can all enjoy it again and send it to our family members. Come on, let's rewatch it now. Shoto grabbed Toya's hand and pulled him towards the couch, pushing him into it as he sat beside him. Izuku on Shoto's other side and Bakugo on Toya's. Snacks were on the table, with various drinks from fizzy to tea. You missed out on the festival and had to have a rough day at Tartarus. You need this right now. Since when do you know what I need? Toya snorted, before Koda approached him holding none other than a meowing Harusame, who hopped from Koda's arms to Toya's lap with a purr. Okay, maybe you know. Shoto's smug face was a sight to behold. Toya sighed as he relaxed into the cushions. Class 1A sat around him, explaining in excited flurry all the set designs, how much practice this all took to perfect, the acrobatics they performed, and other amusing commentary of a group of friends reminiscing on their day's grand success. Toya smiled and listened, petting Harusame, who purred loudly on his lap, with his baby brother by his side. He has it very good. Interpersonal. There's a fly. Go away! Spend time with your mother, sister, and grandmother. Grandmother? Akihime's not here. Toya narrows his eyes on him suspiciously. I still have some photos somewhere. I could try to dig it. Blah, 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 blah. Natsu snorted with a shrug. Blah, blah. Natsu snap. Is that necessary? Is that really necessary to do that? It's annoying. It's rude. Let's make this concert out of this I'm not shonen enough for this.